Are there any motions on the floor? Senator Okereke.
Motion to open the floor for Docket nominations.
Is there a second? Any objections? Seeing none, that motion passes. Are there any nominations on the floor? Senator Tian.
I nominate Docket A, consisting of first, the bill concerning Taiwan, and second, the cap and trade bill.
All right. Are there any other nominations? Senator Patel.
I nominate Dara's docket consisting of only Taiwan.
Did you say only Taiwan?
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to rule
Are we
that.
not allowed?
No.
Okay, then I rescind my docket.
All right, Senator Patel. Okay. Are there any other nominations? Are there any motions? Senator Lung.
Motion to close docket nominations.
Is there a second? Any and all objections, please rise. Okay, seeing none, we will be accepting Taiwan and then cap and trade as our dockets. Our first order of business will be the Taiwan bill. Do we have a sponsorship? Senator Patel, you have the floor.
Thank you. Any indication for my judges when they're ready? And I just want to make sure, am I lagging on anyone's end?
Wait, real quick, is it Taiwan first?
You can like put up an emoji or something. You're muted. Okay. So I'll start then. I'm Senator Patel, spelled P-A-T-E-L. And as I said, I'm at the leisure of all of those above me, and now I'll begin. Tensions are rising. Our responsibility as Congress is to prioritize democracy, prosperity, and safety. To continue on this path, we must support Taiwan. Join me and affirm my resolution. The problem the world is currently facing is that a war between China and Taiwan is inevitable. By passing my legislation, we will be able to give them the backbone that they need. The war has yet to commence, but death's day is soon approaching. Taiwan's need for democracy is a serious provocation for China, which regards Taiwan as a wayward province and views U.S. relationships as a threat to the Chinese sovereignty. A conflict is guaranteed if we continue on this path. An interview with the Chinese ambassador late January showed that China will enforce action against Taiwan if we continue to provide support to them, meaning that we can either go all in or all out. And it's best to give Taiwan a fighting chance. This is a clear indication of a war commencing, and we must take our stand by passing my legislation. If we won't, we will certainly go to war, endangering the people of Taiwan. The solution to this problem is my resolution. We give Taiwan a fighting chance by passing my resolution. Taiwan has been proven to be unable to sustainably fight on their own. Washington University explained that a limiting financial base forces them to make investment trade-offs in maximizing the island's security. Taiwan's small land mass and proximity to China makes the island prone to being saturated by defense hardware. Low birth rates and aging population negatively affect Taiwan's readiness to fight. If we do another comparison, according to the Central Asian Bureau of Analytics, China has the strongest military in the world, scoring 82 out of 100 points in the index, while Taiwan scored a mere 16.2 out of 100, proving to be one of the weakest countries available. It is evident that Taiwan is guaranteed to lose when a war commences, and millions of lives will be lost. Military support is crucial, and with our help, they have a fighting chance. The U.S. Department showed in a study that we will be able to sustainably neighboring countries and our influence throughout the world. It is more than likely that other countries will join in and help continue to develop Taiwan's readiness to fight. Regardless of whether we win or lose, millions of casualties will be accounted for, and war never ends well. With that in mind, there is no real answer to the issue our nation faces. The safest choice is the best. Regardless of the outcome of this legislation, Taiwan will experience war from China, and it will result in death, suffering, and destruction. We must do everything we can to fight for what's right, democracy, for the safety of our friends, comrades, our nation, and the people of Taiwan. Senators, join me and pass my legislation.
Thank you, Senator Patel, for that speech of 3 minutes and 9 seconds. We're now in line for 4 blocks of cross-examination. All questioners, please rise. Senator Okariki.
Great speech, Representative. You said in your speech that we want to intervene to keep safety in Taiwan, correct?
Can you please restate that? You're breaking up.
You said in your speech that intervening if China invades would provide safety, right?
Yes.
How do you justify the millions that would die if we're intervening for safety of the civilians then?
As I explained in my speech, I wouldn't want to harm anyone, but regardless of whether we pass this legislation,
Wouldn't you suggest that interfering would cause more deaths than us not interfering?
No, interfering will result in less
You
deaths
say
because
no,
we'll be
but we have to drag it allies,
in
correct?
defense, not offense. We're fighting defense.
If we're going
Thank
to
you,
defend Taiwan,
Senators.
we're going to
Senator Lai.
Hey, Senator, you mentioned how there's going to be a war either way. So what exactly would passing this bill do?
What exactly would passing this bill do? It will give them a sustainable ability to fight back.
Well, I mean, as of right now, we already give tons of funding to them and train their troops and give them money. So like, what exactly would this do to help them anymore and fight China?
Regardless of how much funding we have given, which is clearly not enough.
Wouldn't all this do only upset China even more?
Actively have one of the world's best.
Well, we already said President Biden already said we would defend Taiwan. So what's the
either
point?
way? It's
Thank you, Senators. Senator R. Pradhan.
Thank you for that speech. You say China has motivation to attack Taiwan right now. Considering Taiwan's a major economic partner, why would China risk this economic loss?
Why would China risk this economic loss? To be honest, I have no idea. But regardless, the Chinese ambassador
Your
said that
evidence
they will do
from
so.
Chinese leaders deciding to attack, where was that evidence from? Like you pointed out.
From the ambassador in an interview late January, and let me find the exact interview.
And was it from a Chinese military official?
It's from the ambassador, basically the person who represents them for our country, for interpretation.
Thank you, Senators. Senator Long.
Can you tell me what action China has already taken so far against Taiwan in terms of military?
In terms of military, there has been invasions and corruption going on. While they haven't taken any full military
Okay, so then why would we engage? Why would we engage then? They haven't
They are
done
threatening
anything.
to do so. That's
Okay, have they
exactly
done
why
it
this
yet?
legislation-
Have they done it yet?
Have they done it yet? As I explained, it will happen.
No, it hasn't happened, so we're not going to provoke them, and we're not
why
going to
this
start a war
legislation
by
needs to
placing
make-
American military presence on an island.
American military presence is already
Thank you,
viable. There's
Senators.
18
Questioning
troops
time has
on the
elapsed. Thank you, Senators. Seeing as that was a speech in the affirmation, we're now in line for a speech in the negation.
Good chair, and I apologize.
All speakers, please rise. Senator Gupta. Senator Gupta, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Is that on my end?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's on my end.
I had the wrong microphone selected. Sorry.
Right.
Judges, if you could give me a thumbs up or a message in chat when you're ready. I think Joey said he's always ready. So, okay, I'll begin. As we speak here today, there's a fire of Chinese aggression burning across the Pacific, spreading across the region, and threatening to silence millions of voices, to end millions of lives. I'm not willing to pour gasoline on these flames. I beg you, don't let these flames go any further. Negate. Negate on 2 counts. First, to maintain leverage over China, and 2, to protect minorities. First, fail today's legislation to maintain leverage over China. Contrary to what Senator Patel tells you, backing Taiwan militarily could be a disastrous misstep in our foreign policy in the South China Sea. Why? China doesn't like it when their foreign policy interests and economic interests clash. They will cut off trade as they've done before. In fact, Reuters writes in June 2021, China is ready to halt imports of more agriculture products from the US if we take any more action on Hong Kong's independence. In fact, after we gave Hong Kong favorable trading conditions, Chinese firms canceled up to 20,000 tons of American pork shipments. And that's just Hong Kong. Imagine what their reaction would be if we recognize Taiwan, a region they have even stronger beliefs on. So far, the rest of has only talked about the economic impacts. Let me pick up and give you the single most important impact in this round. Fail because this bill only worsens the humanitarian crisis China's perpetuating. Currently, our trade with China has given us at least some leverage over them. As foreignpolicy.com tells us in December of 2017, by leveraging our tariffs, we got China to rescind some of Huawei's data enrichment abilities. It's the only way we've been actually able to influence their foreign policy decisions. But all this leverage hinges on China continuously trading with us. If we pass and China cuts off major trade agreements, we lose our ability to try and leverage. Why is this leverage so important? It protects their human rights abuses. In fact, according to Vox, in September of 2020, China has locked up over 3 million Uyghur Muslims in modern-day concentration camps, conducting ethnic cleansing, using them as forced labor, and even going as far as to harvesting their organs while they were still alive. Ultimately, the only way we can properly negotiate with China is to change those morally reprehensible policies with the presence of trade in the affirmation world. In the affirmation world, much of it is gone. This means the affirmation worlds that Senator Patel champions, which each vote, that's one more Uyghur Muslim put under forced labor, one more Uyghur having their organs harvested. Don't let the fires of Chinese aggression spread further, Senator Patel. Douse the fire today. Don't let innocents' lives burn up in ashes. Fail this bill.
Thank you, Senator Gupta, for that speech of 2 minutes and 48 seconds. All questioners, please rise. Senator Patel.
You explained that possibly implementing this legislation would cut off our trade, but haven't sanctions by us already been imposed?
We've imposed sanctions on China. No, I'm saying China might get even more aggressive in their trade policies, which is detrimental to our economy too.
What percentage would this affect our economy? And are there any other alternative countries we could trade with instead with similar demographic?
China is one of our biggest trade. It is the biggest trade partner that we have. So it's really important that we keep as much leverage as we have on them.
Thank you, Senators. Senator Tian.
Hi, so you said that the only way to properly negotiate with China is to not put more aggression towards them, right?
I didn't say that's the only way. I'm saying we should maintain as much leverage as we can to protect.
However, why hasn't that worked in the past years? Because the Uyghur crisis has been going on since 2013.
Yeah, but
It's only getting worse.
But that because we have leverage on them. Since we have leverage on them, it's not getting that much out of control.
Thank you, Senators.
But if
Senator
we
Gomez.
have leverage on them.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you. Senator, has China warned against cutting trade with us if we support Taiwan?
They've done it in the past.
They have warned against cutting trade with us.
They've actually cut off trade with us in the past.
I will that we are a very important trade partner to China, as they are to us.
We're both important to each other, but Taiwan is also extremely important to China.
Would you say China will be at a great loss if it cuts trade with us?
They would be at a great loss, but they would
And
also
why would they cut trade with us?
lose Taiwan
Then why would they do that?
because they would lose Taiwan.
Okay.
Thank you, Senators. Senator Sheikh.
Hi, Senator. Do you value lives over economic ties?
Yeah, that's why I'm arguing for the Uyghur Muslims.
No. You see, when you affirm, you're valuing the lives of Taiwanese people who are being threatened by China. So why are you not affirming? If you
But
prefer
I would argue that that doesn't
ties?
compare to the 3 million Uyghur Muslims that are being abused in China right now.
How are we positively affecting the Uyghur Muslims if we don't pass this bill?
Because we maintain leverage over them through trade agreements.
Yeah, but then they also have leverage over us. How does it change the status quo?
Thank you, Senators. Questioning time has elapsed. Seeing as that was a speech in the negation, we're now in line for a speech in the affirmation. All speakers, please rise. Senator Yoon, you have the floor.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Senator Yoon, spelled Y-O-O-N, and I'm at the leisure of all those above me, and with any indication that the judges are ready, I will begin. Cool. When Imperial German guns bombarded Belgium, America stood in solidarity. When Japanese Marines landed in the Philippines, America vowed vengeance. When North Korea army swept into Seoul, America rallied in the international community to aid the beleaguered South Korean defenders. And yet, today, with one of our greatest allies being besieged by a tyrannical enemy, the Congress seems to have its hand inexplicably tied. As the PRC becomes more aggressive, more powerful, more warmongering, we are forced to act. By supporting Taiwan with this resolution, we mitigate the negative effects that war can bring. This is first done with this resolution, as it will likely lead to the avoidance of war outright. Now, Senator Patel, Gupta, and in their speeches, and Senator Lai in his questioning, all mentioned that the US aiding Taiwan is upsetting China and leading to the inevitable invasion from China. However, it is understandable that a country like China, no matter how upset they're becoming, will not go into a war that they know that they will either lose or at a minimum suffer from heavy costs, both in terms of money and human lives, especially when the potential gain isn't that momentous. So unlike what Senator Patel mentioned, it is possible for the US to intervene and prevent the war outright. Let's first look at the cost that China would face if they invaded Taiwan. There is no one way or one projection that we can look at this, but we can look at history and other estimates to make a prediction. According to the Atlantic Council, in February 2022, Taiwan currently holds a defending force of around 450,000 soldiers. And the Atlantic Council also used a traditional 3-to-1 ratio of attackers to defenders to estimate the pure number aspect that the Chinese would require. This puts China at a need of around 1.2 million soldiers out of their total active force of 2 million. Remember, Taiwan is an island, so these 1.2 million soldiers would all need to be transported by either ship or plane. Like Senator Patel said, this is a hefty cost, but still likely doable. But now let's add in the US forces, with statistical reporting that in 2022, they held over 1.3 million active soldiers. If only a fraction of these forces were sent to defend Taiwan, China is at no match. And these numbers are likely lowballs. The Hill reported that in 1941, the US's plan to invade Taiwan, that at the time was only defended by 30,000 Japanese soldiers, called for 400,000 US soldiers and 4,000 ships as well, much higher than the ratio of 3-to-1 ratio alluded to earlier. With the Chinese government understanding this, it is understandable that they wouldn't blindly invade Taiwan into total destruction. This is a pattern commonly seen in history. For example, the Cold War. In it, the Soviets and the United States never held any direct conflict, and any scuffle would occur in satellite wars. This is because these countries themselves understand that head-to-head conflict between two superpower countries will lead to heavy costs for both sides. So whenever available, they will be avoided. This is the case with this resolution. It changes the Chinese perspective of a war against a manageable Taiwan to a war against a dominating duo of Taiwan and the United States. So let's avoid war and let's affirm.
Thank you, Senator Yoon, for that speech of 3 minutes and 4 seconds. All questioners, please rise. Senator Okariki.
Great speech, Representative. You stated in your speech that America has around millions of men that they are capable of sending to aid Taiwan, correct?
Not they're capable of completely sending all their military, but they have around 1.2 million.
But they have more men, right? But
They
you
have
do
plenty of-
understand the Pacific Ocean is to get to America to China is a very large logistical issue.
Yeah, I
correct?
understand that. But
So how
there
do you
are plenty
suppose
of-
that we're going to send that much men?
Well, we have plenty of countries where we have just.
Okay, but don't you
indissolubly
suggest that the
already.
Chinese Navy and the Chinese missiles, which have upgraded, will interfere and cause thousands to die?
Of course, they could happen, but why would they do that when
So
then?
if they could have, why are we sending men then? It will cause more.
Thank you,
deaths.
senators. Senator R. Pradhan.
Thank you for that speech, Senator. You talked about how the United States could send these forces to Taiwan, but considering the United States is widespread throughout the globe in terms of our forces, how would this be possible?
Okay, but I feel as if that even though like you said, they are widespread, it is completely understandable that if necessary, they would be able to hold soldiers there to an extent.
But if China perceives that the United States is going to send forces, why won't they just immediately attack?
Because they understand that with the United States puts in their full.
But why
effort,
won't they attack before the US sends forces?
Okay, but if we do this right now, then they won't have time by attacking this issue early.
All right.
Thank you, senators. Questioning time has elapsed. Seeing as that was a speech in the affirmation, we're now in line for a speech in the negation. All speakers, please rise. Senator A. Pradhan, you have the floor.
I thank the chair. Please give me an indication when I may begin. There's a fire burning in the Pacific, spreading across the region and threatening millions of lives. No, I'm not talking about a forest fire. I'm talking about China, the biggest threat to US foreign policy that we've seen in decades. But I am not willing to pour gasoline on the flames. I am failing this bill. So far, the affirmative has told you why it's so important to protect Taiwan. But what they fail to understand is that this bill doesn't effectively accomplish that. The bill states we're going to commit a military defense in case of a land invasion. What this means is that China can actually launch naval attacks and airstrikes to completely cripple Taiwan's defense, but we wouldn't actually help them. By the time China launches a land invasion, the Taiwanese defense forces would be so crippled that stopping a Chinese invasion would be next to impossible. In fact, exactly 2 months ago, the BBC reported that China sent 30 warplanes into Taiwanese air zones, and they've ratcheted up the frequency of air missions in recent months. Senator Patel's argument about protecting Taiwan does not work because we don't actually protect them until it's too late. Now that we've established why the AF's argument fails, let's look at another reason why we should fail this bill. Fail because it causes Chinese economic retaliation. Currently, US-China relations are tense, with the New York Times stating that the US and China have entered into a second Cold War, as tensions have reached the most acute levels since the end of the first Cold War 4 decades ago. And what does this bill do? It empowers the US military in the region and recognizes Taiwan's sovereignty. This gives China a huge reason to retaliate economically. Reuters reported in June 2020 that after Trump told reporters the US was going to eliminate special treatment for Hong Kong, Chinese importers immediately canceled 10,000 to 20,000 tons of American pork shipments because of action against Beijing. But why does this matter? Because it also directly hurts our bottom line. A Brookings article stated that the US-China trade war cost the United States 300,000 jobs, 0.3% of our GDP, and a staggering $316 billion. The US-China trade war lasted around 1 to 2 years. Now multiply the effects mentioned by 5 or 10 years, and that's the effect this bill has on us. We directly hurt ourselves and all of our constituents' livelihoods, jobs, and financial safety with this bill. This Congress is supposed to act in the best interests of our people, but this bill does nothing to this bill does nothing to protect Taiwan and directly hurts our most vulnerable constituents. Fail.
Thank you, Senator, for that speech of 2 minutes and 47 seconds. All questioners, please rise. Senator Gomez.
Thank you. Senator, although this bill only handles land invasions, wouldn't you say this is a start in the right direction?
If we're going to do a start in the right direction, I feel as if it should be more than only helping Taiwan when their defense is completely destroyed, or when it's crippled to a point where they can't defend themselves.
Thank you. So do you think that we should rather do nothing to help Taiwan?
I never said we should do nothing, but this bill isn't effective enough to protect them, as well as having immediate downsides for ourselves also.
I think there is a very good chance that China will invade by land. Do you agree with this?
Thank you, Senators. Senator Bala.
So do you think that Taiwan's democracy needs to be?
I'm sorry, did you say Taiwan's democracy needs to be protected?
I said, do you believe that Taiwan's democracy needs to be protected?
Yes, I believe it should be protected, but the problem with this is that it doesn't effectively protect it until it's too late, and it directly hurts us also.
So how does it not protect it until it's too late? Because we'll be sending our military spending before any Chinese attack or anything, right?
Thank you, Senators. Questioning time has elapsed. Senator Patel, is that a motion?
Yes. Motion to suspend the rules of debate to extend the questioning period by 2 blocks.
Is there a second? All right, we'll take a vote. All in favor, please raise your placards. That does not meet our 2/3 threshold of a majority required to suspend the rules to extend questioning. Seeing as that was a speech in the negation, we're now in line for a speech in the affirmation. All speakers, please rise. Senator Gomez.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Sandro Gomez, speaking for the first time in this legislative session. Judges and PO, please give me an indication when you're ready. I see PO, and I assume the judges are ready. I'll begin. When I was starting high school, I didn't have the best experience. My first day, I had to turn over my lunch to a couple of sophomores picking on me, the shortest ninth grader. Fortunately, my good friend from middle school stepped in to defend me. Senders, look at the story on the world stage. This is what we are dealing with. Senator Gupta's hesitation to act upon this matter can cost us both a valuable democratic partner and our international reputation. Stand with me in defense of 10th grade bullies. To begin, let's see what is currently happening on the other side of the globe. From this examination, I'll point out groups of people who will be harmed by the negation's lack of action. China has killed 200 individuals in an unprovoked attack on merchant ships harbored near Vietnam, Taiwan, and the Philippines in 2020. Recent satellite imaging also found that China is preparing for a nuclear war. This is victim number 1, casualties from Chinese attacks from our hesitation to assist the island. We also know from the CFR that over recent years, Chinese cyber attacks against Taiwan have soared, especially in the midst of a pandemic. From these threats and others, 62% of residents in Taiwan recognize themselves as exclusively Taiwanese, up from 40% a decade ago, as the National Shanghai University found this year. That's victim number 2, Taiwanese citizens who refuse to be considered Chinese after an invasion. However, with today's resolution and support from our allies, this fear never has to become a reality. Now that we have seen our full history, let's see this bill's effects. The Wall Street Journal reports in 2019 that keeping Taiwan out of China's grip is crucial for denying China's goal of attaining regional dominance and eventually global eminence. The island occupies a pivotal strategic position. If Taiwan falls without our assistance, China would have the ability to project military power throughout Asia, which would be victim number 3. China has already proven itself willing to attack and kill civilians unprovoked. Not only would an invasion of Taiwan without an intervention result in a humanitarian crisis of massive proportions, it would enable them to set their sights on future military action. Finally, as Senator Yoon emphasized, the very possibility of US intervention has been enough to give Chinese military planners pause, as MPL details as well. Strategic ambiguity has forced Beijing to assume the US will get involved. And with this bill's pass, this Chinese hesitation will be cemented. Senators, I've shown you in the past, present, and future, and all 3 point to the affirmation of this resolution. I urge you to stand up to the global bullies and pass this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Gomez, for that speech of 2 minutes and 42 seconds. All questioners, please rise. Senator A. Pradhan.
Great speech, Senator. Given that this bill only lets us protect Taiwan once a land invasion happens, how does this bill actually be effective and help us protect Taiwan and stop China?
I would say this is a step in the right direction. It is very likely that China would attack by land, if not by the nuclear missiles. Would you agree?
How is this a step in the right direction if we're not actually supporting them with troops?
I would say it's better than nothing. At least we are keeping the promise that President Biden has made already. Would you agree?
Shouldn't we pass something else that will help them more effectively than this bill?
I think. Oh,
thank you, senators. That next block will go to Senator Long.
Okay, so from a pure logistical standpoint, we're farther away from Taiwan than China is, right? That already puts us at a military disadvantage.
That's true.
Okay, then you said in your speech that China is gearing up for nuclear war. So why am I going to risk millions of Taiwanese and American lives by engaging in war?
As Senator Yoon and MPL detailed, the very possibility of the US supporting Taiwan will scale China away.
What about the possibility of nuclear war? You brought that up.
This would be irrelevant in this situation as we defend Taiwan.
Why is it irrelevant? They've been gearing up to use nuclear war, right? Now they see us provoking them by...
They would stop getting ready for the nuclear war once we see that we are supporting Taiwan.
Thank you, senators. Questioning time has elapsed. Seeing as that was a speech in the affirmation, we're now in line for a speech in the negation. All speakers, please rise. Senator Lai.
I thank the chair. Just the timer. Is everyone ready? Okay, seeing no objections, I'll get started in a second. This Congress loves to believe we are invincible, and wherever we go, we spread peace and democracy with zero repercussions. But just like in the Middle East, Latin America, and Africa, that is never the case, and Taiwan will be no different. I actually want to clear one thing up. Senator Patel, Gomez, and the affirmation assumes that Taiwan is weak, but actually they've invested huge amounts into their military and are incredibly prepared. Defense News found in April of this year that in the status quo, Taiwan is very much defended already. The US has spent over $15 billion in military aid to Taiwan, and the US trains Taiwanese troops to fight China. Furthermore, Reuters explained in 2021 that Taiwan has spent over $9 billion investing in their arms industry. Would you call that one of the weakest nations, Senator Patel? It's not. It is clear that unlike what the affirmation believes, passing this resolution will not protect Taiwan any more than it already is. And even then, in the status quo, China has no intentions of invading. In a recent report done by the Pentagon, they found that China has not invested their navy for beachfront attacks, the type of attacks necessary to invade Taiwan. Instead, China has invested into an expansionary fleet like the US's, something you would not see if China intended to invade Taiwan soon. So it's clear that they have no intentions to invade right now, with most of China's threats being just words. And unlike what Senator Gomez says about our stance confusing China, President Biden has already made the promise, meaning that this bill will not do anything to change what President Biden has already promised. But there is not just the fact that there is no benefit for passing this resolution, but there are huge amounts of downsides. And this is because it will only cause more of a fight. The Council of Foreign Relations found last month that China still pushes their one China policy, and Taiwan's drifting has been a constant source of their humiliation. This has gone to a point where Reuters reported this year that after Trump top diplomat Mike Pompeo pushed for the Taiwanese independence, China sanctioned him. If they're going to go through that much effort of sanctioning a man who's no longer in power just because he said something that Taiwan should be independent, imagine what they would do to the US if we declared them independent. And Senator Yoon says that China will not attack, which I agree. But what they will do is sanction the US. We have seen that in our modern society, sanctions are used like weapons, and China will do exactly that. Last month, the New York Times reported that after seeing the effects sanctions have on the Russian economy, China has sought to isolate itself from Western powers. And at the same time, we have not done anything in the same, meaning that if China were to throw up sanctions, we would be caught flat-footed. And we can see exactly the problem with that in the last trade war. Brookings found in 2020 that after former President Trump's trade war, it cost the US over 0.7% of the GDP. That doesn't sound like much, but that's over $300 billion. In fact, those tariffs cost companies over $50 billion, cutting profit margins, wages, and resulting in 300,000 lost jobs. And what was the result of this trade war? Our trade deficit only grew. So it's clear that this bill will not increase Taiwanese safety as promised. It will only cause the US to bear higher sanctions and continue.
Thank you, Senator
our
Lai. I'm
constituents.
afraid I'm going to have to cut you off there. Thank you for that speech of 3 minutes and 10 seconds. All questioners, please rise. Between those standing, that will go to Senator Patel.
Thank you. You explained that Taiwan is not weak because they have a funding of roughly $21 billion. How much exactly is China funded?
It's not that point. It's a fact that, well, first, we even have the 7th Fleet stationed there. Biden has promised to help protect.
For clarification,
And China's, all right, but do you really assume that China's going to throw their entire military in? But do you really assume that China's going to throw their entire military at
They'll
Taiwan?
definitely throw a great person in, and their military far outweighs one of
And
China.
on top of that, why would they do that when it's literally going to result in the destruction of Taiwan?
Thank you, Senators. Senator Yoon.
So like you were just talking about, Taiwan has a strong army, correct?
Mm-hmm.
But still, like Senator Patel was alluding to, Chinese has a much stronger army that they don't need to put in their entire army for. And along with that, the US has a greater army more than Taiwan. Why isn't it that the fact that the US is stronger gonna act as like more of a scare for Chinese to avoid going to war?
Well, I mean, in your own speech, you talked about how you were already making sure that they won't want to invade because they're afraid of us joining the war. But President Biden already said that he promised to defend Taiwan. So how's this any different?
Thank you, Senators. Questioning time has elapsed. Seeing as that was a speech in the negation, we're now in line for a speech in the affirmation. All speakers, please rise. Senator Tian, you have the floor.
I thank the chair, that's Senator Tian, Tian. Without any opposition from my judges, I'll begin my speech momentarily. All good? Okay. Whilst every senator in this debate thus far has gone with the sentiment of this conflict being between China and Taiwan, rightfully so, it is truly impressive how this Congress today has failed to account for our other constituents who live around the world. The necessity of passing Senator Patel's bill goes beyond China, Taiwan, and the South China Sea. And here's why. The first reason why it goes beyond the South China Sea is because Senator Lee made a futile attempt to refute Senator Patel in questioning by truthfully saying that this bill doesn't accomplish anything new. Why? He claims because President Biden has already given his strongest warning yet to Beijing on behalf of Taiwan, and that the US has already given, according to Al Jazeera in 2022, $100 million in financial aid to Taiwan in support of their military defenses. But what Senator Patel couldn't tell him about her own bill was that this resolution is actually different. And contrary to what he and the rest of the negation champion, this bill actually does constitute something new. While Senator Lee is right to say that Joe Biden has, on 3 separate occasions, committed to defending Taiwan, he has yet to make an official recognition of Taiwan as a sovereign state, which this resolution ensures. My second contention directly addresses Senator Gupta, who preached that passing this bill will only hurt minorities in the Uyghur population. This argument can then be flipped on its head when he hears the worldwide impacts of failing this bill that can greatly outweigh his hypothetical regional impact of passing. And this is the time in which, unlike what Senator Yoon on my own side previously stated, a large clash between 2 countries doesn't just hurt these 2 countries. Unfortunately, they hurt our constituents around the entire world. Because let's do what no other senator in this round has done thus far and take a look at the very recent precedent, which unfortunately has been provided by Russia and Ukraine. When the UN estimates that this war between Russia and Ukraine could reduce global growth by 1% this entire year, as scary as that is, Taiwan's top trade negotiator, John Deng, estimates that the worldwide consequences of a Chinese invasion to Taiwan would be much worse. And this concern is substantiated by the reality that, according to the Associated Press in 2022, Taiwan accounts for 92% of the world's semiconductor power, which is the majority of which will be destroyed in the case of a Chinese invasion. The ripple effects of destroying the semiconductor source are undeniable by the negation, who could not imagine living in a world short of semiconductor-powered vehicles, technology, and communication methods. My third and final contention will quash the concerns of Senator A. Pradhan and Senator Long in questioning to Senator Gomez, to address the claim that has been championed by the negation throughout this debate, because passing Senator Patel's bill will actually counter potential invasion from China. China recognizes that the U.S. purchases, according to the U.S. Trade Agency, $400 billion yearly in imports from China, and they won't risk this opposition nor this loss. They won't attack, and that's why this declaration and this resolution is so important to pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tian, for that speech of 3 minutes and 9 seconds. All questioners, please rise. Senator Gupta.
You said that you directly refuted my point, but you didn't actually give any reasoning as to why, as to what is better than my point about
Could you expand on that, please?
You said that the Uyghur Muslims are less important than.
I'm not saying that they're not important, but I'm saying that my impacts are stretch across the world, whereas yours only stretch across one region.
Was your impact economic?
Yes, it is, because the entire economy around the world relies on semiconductors.
1% economic loss, right?
1% around the world is pretty significant, actually.
I don't think it's that significant compared to 3 million Uyghur Muslims.
Well,
thank you, Senators. Senator Lai.
Hey, Senator. So you mentioned that we haven't recognized Taiwan already. So what exactly would recognizing Taiwan do besides helping defend?
As previous senators have mentioned, the people of Taiwan feel a great national pride in being recognized as a sovereign nation.
Well, just because they have national pride, how does that
increase their
help
motivation
anything?
To counter China and to continue.
Well, you don't think that right now they already have so much national pride that they really want to make sure that they don't go part of China?
How is it pride. It's a matter of defending themselves.
That's all you just mentioned was that it's national pride. But then if they have, let's say, higher morale, that doesn't mean that they're going to fight harder because they already are fighting hard.
Thank you, Senators. Questioning time has elapsed. Seeing as that was a Senator Okariki, is that a motion?
Yes, motion to break the rules and send it questioning by one block.
Is there a second? All right, Senator Gomez, all in favor, please rise. Okay, we have 4 in favor. That does not meet the threshold, so that motion does fail. We're now in line for a speech in the negation. All speakers, please rise. Senator Okereke, you have the floor.
All right, thank you. This is Senator Okereke, spelled Okereke, speaking for the first time in today's chamber. And just to clarify, y'all can all hear me clearly, right? Okay, cool. And I will begin at my first word. The countries of China and Taiwan were formed out of fire and blood, senators. Passing this bill would cause both countries to end in fire and blood. If you want to logically avoid this from occurring, we must fail this bill. But a vital mental question for all senators in this chamber. Do you truly think America will stand to its word of defending Taiwan with its military? And if so, at what cost? However, first, let's outline the consequence of America going to war with China for the defense of Taiwan, which has been seen to be downplayed in this chamber. The Atlantic article itself states, if war breaks out with China, the clash would be horrific, and America may lose. A chief officer of the military said in a hilarious interview that if America went to war with China in the Pacific, this could easily lead to America's behind being handed to it. The amount of military power that China holds in its waters will overwhelm any American force attempting to land on Taiwan. So no, Senator Yu, America will not overwhelm China. Your plan on sending millions and will cause millions to die and go to their graves. But the impact of this goes worse. The U.S. news states that if America does end up in a conversation with China, Japan, Australia, South Korea, and even more countries will have to join and might join for America's support. Not only will this cause a massive Pacific war and maybe even World War III, which no one seems to recognize, but because China and its own allies will devastate the Japanese and South Koreans as well, causing hundreds of thousands and maybe even millions to die. So yes, Senator Patel, millions will die if America decides to go to war. Let that sink in, senators and Senator Patel and other senators as well. Millions for an island smaller than Plano, Texas. The impact is vast. As a subpoint, the Hill article also champions, such as Senator Gomez states, we need a valuable partner, right? However, Biden affirms that America will stand to defend Taiwan, right? However, senators, wasn't this the exact same thing Biden said about Ukraine? How can we trust a president who doesn't keep to his word? And how can we trust that he's actually going to help Taiwan? There's no evidence of this occurring, rather than mere words. Senators, let's put this in perspective. Let's say that America does decide to send troops. This before an actual war begins. This war will not have American support. As National Interest article states, a U.S. military presence on Taiwan would lead to a serious provocation of China, which Senator Gupta champions. So why wake a sleeping dragon before it breathes its fire? As senators may refuse to acknowledge what a war with China means for the world economy. As the analysis today states that China controls nearly 65% of all of America and probably the world economy, world trade economy as well. The American economy and the world economy could very much collapse if America goes to war, not just hurting it. Let that sink in, senators. Collapsing the world trade system because of a war with Taiwan. Do we really want that? Lastly, America is rich. What Taiwan needs is not an army fighting for it. It needs funding and heavy aid if Taiwan decides to invade. The Wall Street Journal supports this, that the Taiwanese army is prepared and skilled for a war with China. If America wants to help, and her and her allies must send a volunteer force, not an actual military force to defend, while aiding it significantly. Finally, 18 countries recognize Taiwan as a country. America is not one of those 18. Will America truly fight for a war with China with the country they refuse to recognize, senators? No. So
sorry, Senator, I'm afraid I'm going to have to cut you off.
Thank you for the speech.
Thank you for that speech of 3 minutes and 10 seconds. All questioners, please rise. Senator Tian.
Hi, so you said that America has a chance of losing this war, right?
Yes.
So when you say that other countries will join in to defend Taiwan, isn't that actually a good thing in the affirmations favor?
No, it's not a good thing, because still inevitably millions are going to die. People joining in is not a good thing. It's a bad thing.
People are going to die in Taiwan if China
yes, and
invades,
Taiwan still defense. That doesn't make any difference.
In addition, when you say we need financial aid, I and other senators have already proved that we've given millions and billions.
Okay, financial aid during wartime and during supporting time are two different things. We need to aid them.
Are you aware that this bill is not saying?
Thank you, Senator. Senator Bala.
So you say that Taiwan's army is extremely skilled, right? But do you really think that Taiwan's army themselves could defend against China
Yes,
all
they
by
can.
themselves?
Let's look at the geography. Taiwan is extremely hilly, and Taiwan has been invested in mountaineers and these defense forces to defend
Okay,
their
but
homeland. So they are able to defend.
can you give me a comparison of the Taiwanese forces
Okay, you're
versus
saying that
the
Chinese army
Chinese
is large, so
forces?
it's going to win. Large of an army does not indicate if a country's going to win, because a large army can still be
Why
defeated
not?
by a
Why
small
not?
army. Because
Thank you, senators. Questioning
And-
time has elapsed. Senator Patel, is that a motion?
Motion to suspend the rules to extend questioning by 2 blocks.
Is there a second? Senator Yoon, all in favor, please rise. We'll need 9 votes for this to pass. All right, we have 6 votes. I'm afraid that does not pass the 2/3 vote majority, so that motion does fail. Seeing as that was a speech in the negation, we're now in line for a speech in the affirmation. All speakers, please rise. Senator Bala, you have the floor.
Hello, my name is Senator Bala. I'm speaking for the first time today, and I'll be ready when the judges, parliamentarians, and POs are. So if you guys could just give me a nod, I'd be happy to begin.
I just want to let you know before you give your speech, you are super choppy. All right, I hope he didn't start. We'll give him a moment. Everyone turn your cameras off.
Okay, I'm gonna start. The topic of whether or not the U.S. should recognize. Can you? Okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear you right now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay.
All right,
Hopefully
you keep freezing up for seconds at a time. So I think like this is going to keep happening throughout your speech because it's been pretty consistent today. If you want to reconnect or something, we might be able to take a moment. And if it's a big problem for you, I don't know what you want to do. I just wanted to let you know.
Okay, can you just give me a minute? I'll just try to like leave the meeting and then join back in. Is that okay?
All right, go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Meanwhile, are there any motions on the floor? Senator Tian?
Motion to call for an indefinite recess until Senator Bala returns.
All right, I'll approve that motion.
Okay, hopefully this is better. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. We'll hope for the best. Go ahead and start. If you cut out for like a massive period of time, I'll just cut you off and send you a message in the chat.
Got it. Okay. All right. The topic of whether or not the U.S. should recognize Taiwan as an independent nation is a heavily contested one. In 1979, when the U.S. cut relations with the ROC, formerly Taiwan, it seemed like a good idea, as the U.S. needed the support of the People's Republic of China during the Cold War. In this modern era, however, the continued unrecognition of Taiwan has been, in the words of Arthur Waldron, famed UPenn professor, our greatest foreign policy failure. In order to save the very principle of democracy and uphold the sacred American ideals, pass this bill. It surprises me that no senator has yet explained the most important reason to support this bill: to ensure that Taiwan doesn't lose its democracy to communist China. Senator A. Pradhan of the NEG contradicts himself in this point. He says that Taiwan's democracy is worth protecting, but then he says that we can protect it through committing our military defense. The NEG knows that it is this Congress's moral duty to protect this thriving democracy, but simply won't honor it. The free world is a particular interest to America, and Taiwan has one of the most flourishing democracies in the world. With the GDP 15th in the world and highly ranked economic, healthcare, and education systems, Taiwan is undoubtedly an independent country. So why are we still acting like it isn't? Isn't it in the American ideals to protect democracy around the world? The action of recognizing Taiwan will send a clear message to China that it will not be able to threaten the status of democracies and interfere in the free world. The narrative of China taking control of democratic regions is not new. In a recent example, Hong Kong has now become heavily restricted and is controlled by the CCP. They were promised democracy, but was democracy truly given? With the reputation China has, we must ensure that Taiwan doesn't become another Hong Kong. This can only be achieved if we stand with Taiwan. A major point raised by the negative is that China would cut trade relations with the US, which would hurt us. However, Senator Gupta of the negative himself concedes that we are equally as important to China as they are to us. We are China's #1 trade partner. The chances of them cutting their trade with us is extremely low because they know that their country and their economy will suffer. Now, I want to just quickly clear another flawed argument made by the neg. In questioning, Senator Leung voiced his concerns of China's threat of nuclear war. The theory of mutually assured destruction tells us that China won't do this because they know that we could equally annihilate their country as well. We mustn't let China's false threats stop us from protecting democracy. Taiwan is a thriving democracy in a world which desperately needs democracy. We can't let it die. Therefore, my fellow senators, pass this bill and protect democracy around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Bala, for that speech of 2 minutes and 56 seconds. All questioners, please rise. I'll just give everyone a moment to turn their cameras back on. You can go ahead. Senator A. Pradhan.
Senator, could you explain how I contradicted myself in my speech?
Right. So during questioning, I asked you, is Taiwan a democracy worth protecting? And you yourself said, yes, Taiwan is a democracy worth protecting. However, in your speech and even during questioning, you said, no, we actually shouldn't protect Taiwan because of the threats China is making. So you're contradicting yourself by saying, yes, we should protect Taiwan, but then you're saying, no, we shouldn't.
My speech with someone else's speech. I didn't say we shouldn't protect Taiwan. I said that this bill wouldn't be effective enough to protect Taiwan. Do you think that only responding to a land invasion is effective enough?
Thank you, Senator. Senator Yoon.
So you mentioned that the most important part of this bill was protecting Taiwan's democracy, correct?
Yes, I believe that protecting.
Yes, but isn't that what Senator Gomez and I mentioned? That if we're able to outright avoid this war, won't that serve as the best way of preserving Taiwan's democracy? And along with that, saving lives, which is far more important in our opinions than just the democracy?
Well, no, because if we don't recognize Taiwan as independent, their democracy is forever going to be it's going to be characterized as not a democracy. So I believe it's extremely vital, and it's Congress's moral imperative to recognize Taiwan and support them.
Thank you, senators. Questioning time has elapsed. Seeing as that was a speech in the affirmation, we're now in line for a speech in the negation. All speakers, please rise. Senator Leung, you have the floor.
Thank you. That's Senator Leung, spelled L-U-N-G, just like the vital organ. I assume all my judges are ready, but if you're not, just... All right. In a game of chess, one of the primary objectives is to capture the center of the board. However, throughout this entire round, senators on the affirmation have failed to capture the center of this debate. Senator Patel and Yoon, you failed today's legislation for one simple reason: don't start a war. In cross-examination with Senator Gomez, Senator Okereke and I outlined the logistical and military disadvantage that we're actually at when we go to war in Taiwan. Senator Bala, I didn't bring up nuclear war. Senator Gomez on your own side brought that up. Thus far, no senator on the affirmation has properly explained to you what China has done that actually requires our military assistance. And so far, no one in this round has managed to tell you what happens when the US supports Taiwan. But here's a real example. Reuters writes in February of 2020 that when the US advocated for Taiwan's admission into the World Health Organization, China immediately issued statements saying that Taiwan was a part of China, an immovable fact. Foreign policy reported in April of 2020 that there was an immediate surge in the presence of Chinese fighter jets over Taiwan. That was China's reaction to a small move towards recognizing Taiwan, military presence. Senator Yoon, you're saying China won't take military action, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Senator Shaikh, you bring up the impact of lives versus economics in cross-examination. But when direct Chinese military presence is an action towards something this small, what do you think happens when we both recognize them as a nation and place our military in Taiwan? Senator Gomez, what happens is you start a war, and it's not a war we can say that we win for sure. Senator Patel and Yoon, I've already outlined the disadvantage that we're at. Senator Gomez on your own side told you about that. I actually want to disagree with Senator Lee that Taiwan alone will be ready to fight China. But I think the two of us can mutually agree that until China actually takes military action, we shouldn't risk millions of American and Taiwanese lives. Senator Tien, you know what's better than other countries joining in to defend Taiwan in war? It's if we don't start the war in the first place. Senator Bala, I admire your advocacy and idealism in protecting the free world and democracy. But regardless of political ideology, I want to protect lives first. Even though I compared this debate to chess, Senator Patel, Yoon, and Gomez, this isn't a game. We're talking about real lives. The trade war that ensues after the passage of this legislation is a stalemate for the US and China. But the real war that happens when you pass spells checkmate for all of us. Fail.
Thank you, Senator Lung, for that speech of 2 minutes and 41 seconds. All questioners, please rise. Senator Okereke.
Great speech, Representative. I agree with everything you said in your speech. And just to clarify, when we intervene in this supposed war that might occur, wouldn't you suggest that the consequence of this war could impact the entire world economy and lead to its collapse, correct?
That's what I said in my speech.
So when this happens, what do you suggest that the supposed allies of China would do to respond to this? Because we have to understand that this is a global conflict that could occur.
Well, okay,
so what would
we
the
don't
Chinese
have to
allies
start
do?
the global conflict, right? That's our choice. Just don't put
Yes.
our military in Taiwan. It sounds pretty simple to me.
Yeah, but what happens
Thank you,
when...
senators. Next block will go to Senator Gomez.
Thank you. Senator, I emphasized in my speech the low likelihood of a nuclear war due to mutually assured destruction, which Senator Bala claimed himself. Do you agree with this theory?
Okay, I agree, but even if I buy that, there's still the high chance that we're starting a war, which I've proved.
Not with the theory
thoroughly
that you
throughout my
agreed
speech.
upon just now. With the theory that you agreed on just now, mutually assured destruction, China will be fearful of our support with Taiwan. Therefore,
Why would they be fearful of our support if we're already military disadvantaged? I outlined that in my speech as well as in my cross-examination with you.
well, in this legislation, it says that we are military advantage along with our allies, India, Japan, etc. And with Taiwan's advanced military as well. Wait, should I stop?
Thank you, senators. Senator Patel, is that a motion?
Yeah. Motion to suspend the rules of debate to extend questioning period by 2 blocks.
Is there a second? All right, all in favor, please rise. All right, that is 8 votes. That is exactly 2/3, but we need 2/3 plus 1 to reach a majority on this decision, so that motion does fail. Seeing as that was a speech in the negation, we're now in line for a speech in the affirmation. All speakers, please rise. Senator Shaikh, you have the floor.
Hello, everyone. That's Senator Shaikh, spelled S-H-A-I-K, speaking for the second time this legislative session. Whenever the judges are Ready? Please give me a thumbs up and I'll get started. Good. Good. All right. Taipei 101 is Taiwan's most iconic building that's long been protected from earthquakes with pendulum technology. It's not just a building, though. It's a symbol of its long-lasting perseverance against attacks on its democracy, and most of all, the symbol of freedom. Unfortunately, Taipei 101 is being threatened by an earthquake far more dangerous than it's ever encountered before, China's inevitable invasion. And it's our job as Congress to act as a pendulum which will mitigate it to protect the very symbol of freedom. Pass. So let's first answer the two main questions this debate has boiled down to. Why hasn't China attacked yet? And will China attack Taiwan in the future? None of the previous senators in this round have given a sure shot answer, but let me tell you why. It's because China thinks it isn't the right time to attack, while they also think their military power isn't powerful enough, as Senator Yoon on my side tells us. Let me pick up the ball from where he left it and explain why it's so important in the context of this round. The Atlantic Council on February 18, 2022 tells us to undertake an invasion, China would need over 1.2 million soldiers that would have to be transported in thousands of ships. Like Senator Yoon said, it's very likely China won't attack, because if they already had the military capacity, then they would have attacked by now. Since they haven't, it shows their military isn't ready. But why does this matter? It's because the answer to this question allows us to answer the second question. Will China attack Taiwan? Senator Lee tells us that they won't, but they will. In the status quo, China has been increasing their defense funding at the highest percentage it's ever been. Look towards CNBC on March 4, 2022. China's defense spending this year has set to grow at its fastest pace since 2019, and it has rose by almost 7.1%. Since China doesn't have the military capabilities to launch an attack, they're bumping up defense spending more than ever to be prepared for an attack on Taiwan. Just because they haven't attacked yet doesn't mean they can't attack in the future. So what does this mean? This cements the likelihood China will attack. So if we pass, we at least give Taiwan a fighting chance if there's a worst case scenario. And in case there's a war, Senator A. Perdon advocates a land invasion doesn't incorporate naval or air forces, which will lead to the demise of Taiwan anyway. But that's a fundamental misunderstanding, because not only can Taiwan get aid quickly because the US has stationed troops on Japan, Philippines, and South Korea, but a land invasion means any kind of invasion, whether it's naval or air. Additionally, Senators A. Perdon and Gupta champion that this will negatively affect the United States via sanctions. Yes, that will occur, but this Congress should take precedence of lies over economic ties. But if the negation has so much of a problem, we will also slap back with sanctions as well, as our allies will too. Because not only is Taiwan feeling threatened, but other countries under the Southern Sea are too. NPR tells us on August 2nd, 2021, that in recent weeks, top Japanese officials have said that if mainland China attacks the island, Japan should join the US defending it. This means China will also be hit by allies, whether it be sanctions or military forces. Even if you don't buy anything that I said, you fundamentally affirm, because with US and our allies' deterrence, we give a chance to prevent war and a chance to fight. This Congress needs to value lives to act as a pendulum of hope.
Sorry, Senator, I'm afraid I'm going to have to cut you off. Thank you for that speech of 3 minutes and 10 seconds. All questioners, please rise. Senator Gupta.
My argument was that China will come back with sanctions and cut trade agreements, which means that we lose our leverage against the Uyghur Muslims.
Okay, look, Uyghur Muslims there's a problem with that, but there's also Taiwanese people. We have to choose the people, since there are more people that we can protect once we value Taiwan over the Uyghur people.
Are there 3 million Uyghur Muslims that could be affected if we pass this bill?
And there are more people in Taiwan who need protection. We have to take precedence of more people.
Are the Uyghur Muslims already being abused?
Yeah, but then many people will die in Taiwan if we don't protect once we pass this bill.
Senator Long.
So you're saying it's almost surefire that the US and its allies are going to sanction China, right?
Yeah, they will.
Okay, so why haven't more countries sanctioned Russia or done it early on before Russia's invasion?
Okay, look, Russia's invasion and China's like hypothetical invasion are completely different. I wouldn't compare both of them. But
okay, but I can compare the sanctions on an economic level, right?
Okay,
because both are global superpowers that have valuable exports and imports. So countries would be less willing to sanction those countries.
The reason why countries want to sanction China was because they're also being threatened by their presence, like Japan, South Korea, and Philippines. That's why they'll be able to sanction them in the first place.
Thank you, Senators. Questioning time has elapsed. Senator A. Pradhan, is that a motion?
Motion to suspend the rules to allow for another block of questioning.
Is there a second? All right, all votes in favor, please rise. That is 8 votes. I'm afraid that is not the 2/3 plus 1 majority we need to pass that motion. Seeing as that was a speech in the affirmation, we're now in line for a speech in the negation. All speakers, please rise. Senator R. Pradhan.
I thank the chair. And I'm assuming y'all are ready. My name is Senator R. Pradhan, spelled the same as Senator Pradhan, but with an R. All right, let's go. The affirmative side in this session believes that our foreign policy works magically, like Hollywood movies. But they forget that in Asia, China is the director, the producer, and the main star. The central question of this session that has been forgotten by both sides is not whether if China will attack, but why. Let me explain in the next few minutes what fellow senators on my side could not. The primary argument Senator Patel, Gomez, and Yoon on side affirmative champion is that China wants to attack now. But let's talk about something we have forgotten throughout this round: political motivations. Stephen Hartnett of Foreign Affairs writes on June 7th of 2021 that on the domestic scene, Xi Jinping has amassed virtually unlimited power for himself and his allies, meaning risking war would be an unnecessary gamble. Xi can already boast of cracking down on Hong Kong, subduing Xinjiang, and reclaiming most of the contested South China Sea. But if invading Taiwan went badly, none of that would matter. His legacy in the PRC history would forever be tarnished. And this brings us to the most important reason why China will not invade Taiwan: the costs of doing so. Even given China's enormous military buildup, would be too high. It would be political suicide. There's absolutely no reason for them to invade Taiwan unless they actually declare independence, because that gives Xi Jinping political motivation. Additionally, Senator Yoon, let the other Pradhan answer the question that Senator A. Pradhan could not. By the time we get to aid Taiwan, it will simply be too late. In fact, the simple act of passing this bill would be disastrous. Harris in 22 writes, the proposals to deter China by bolstering US military support in the region are likely to fail due to China's advantages and geographical proximity. China has advantages in terms of geographical proximity to Taiwan and superior commitment to resolving the issue on favorable terms. But don't take me at face value. Let's understand the importance of geography in conflicts our nation was involved in worldwide. Senator Sheikh, you discuss America's involvement in other places. So let's look towards Vietnam, Cuba, Crimea, and the Taliban. Sure, our nation had nuclear weapons and all the aircraft we needed, but we were unsuccessful in the name of freedom and democracy that Senator Patel champions when affirming this bill. China is much bigger and much stronger. We stand no chance. If the US involves ourselves in this war, there will simply be no way home. Additionally, China could decide to escalate much more rapidly if it concluded that the US was likely to intervene militarily. Regardless, China believes that if they give the US time to mobilize and amass firepower in the vicinity of Taiwan, China's chances of victory will decrease substantially. As a result, they could decide to preemptively hit US bases in the region, crippling Washington's ability to respond. The US isn't Batman. We don't have infinite resources every time, and this bill is a clear example of it. Rep. Tian, let's talk about the semiconductors arc that my side didn't answer. Foreign policy finds that China is increasingly reliant on Taiwanese electronics and semiconductors, which is why China has never been willing to hurt Taiwan economically. Rep. Yoon, Sheikh, Gomez, Patel, Tian, and Bala, the affirmative advocacy that you champion is just like the iconic movie Morbius. It has all the hype, but in the end, the bill is a clear flop. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator R. Pradhan, for that speech of 3 minutes and 10 seconds. All questioners, please rise. Senator Patel.
Thank you. Senator R. Pradhan, you explained that we are unable to sustainably attack China because of a lack of resources. Can you expand on that?
The idea is that the geographical proximity China has to Taiwan means that by the time the US mobilizes,
I'm talking about the US.
Yeah, by the time we mobilize, it'll be too late. China would have attacked, the war would be pointless.
Right, but wouldn't it still be better to take some effort to take precautions rather than just eradicate and not help at all?
Look at the bill.
That we have
Senator the A. Pradhan talked about how the bill only works after a land invasion occurs. By the time it's too late.
Thank you, senators. Senator Sheikh.
Hi, Senator. Don't we already have troops stationed in the Taiwan, Philippines, South Korea, and Japan?
Yes, we do have troops, but the idea is if the United States recognized Taiwan as independent, China would seek to attack these bases preemptively, is the argument.
And how would they do that? Wouldn't the other countries
China has
be
significant
attacking?
military capabilities. The
There's
US doesn't
many-
have all
yeah,
of our
but
troops
so do
stationed there.
other countries in the Southern Sea. There are 5 countries.
Yes, but China's
one.
military capabilities in
Won't
the South
China
China
be
Sea are
deterred?
far greater than what we have right now.
No, they aren't. Then they already would have attacked.
I'm explaining they won't attack because Xi Jinping has no political motivation right now.
Thank you, senators. Questioning time has elapsed. Senator Yoon, is that a motion?
Yes, motion to suspend the rules and extend cross-examination by 1 block.
Is there a second? Seeing none, that motion fails. We have exhausted all of our speakers. Is there a motion on the floor? Senator Patel.
Motion to move to previous question.
All right, I will unanimously move this motion because there's nothing left to do. We will move on to a vote on the Taiwan bill. So how I will do this is I will ask everyone to raise their placards for side A or neg, and when I call on you, please raise your placard. Please lower your placard. So all votes on affirmation, please rise. Gomez 1, Yoon 2, Tian 3, Patel 4, Shaikh 5, Bala 6. All votes in the negation, please rise. R. Pradhan 1, Okariki 2, Gupta 3, Lai 4, Lung 5, A. Pradhan 6. Any null abstentions? There should be none. Great, seeing none on a tie of 6-6, as the presiding officer, I will break the tie in favor of the affirmation. Congratulations to our sponsor, Senator Patel. Is there a motion on the floor? Senator Tian.
Point of inquiry, I believe this is a resolution, therefore wouldn't it require 2/3?
No. Resolutions don't require a 2/3 majority unless it's a resolution to amend the Constitution. All right, Senator Patel.
As seeing a natural break in debate, I call for a 5-minute recess.
Is there a second? Any objection? Seeing none, that motion passes. Please return at 27 minutes past the hour.
I just want to make sure our soft stop is at 5, and yeah, our soft stop is at 5, right?
We'll finish when everyone has given 2 speeches.
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right, our recess is a few seconds away from elapsing, so if everyone could please start coming back to their seats and turning on their cameras, that would be just great.
I'm back, but I'm going to turn my camera back off now.
Same thing as Joey. I'm also back, but my Wi-Fi is lagging a little, so I'm just gonna keep my camera off.
Sure thing. Senator R. Pradhan, are you here with us?
Yeah, I got it.
All right, great. Then we'll go ahead and start. This recess has elapsed. We will move to debate on the cap and trade bill. Do we have a sponsor? All right, between Senators Sheikh and Long, that will go to Senator Long. You have the floor.
Once again, that's Senator Lung, spelled L-U-N-G. Judges, let me know in the chat if you're ready, and whoever is ready by default. All right, great. In 1999, the rock band Smash Mouth warned the world of a global warming on their hit song All Star. Since then, global warming and carbon emissions haven't slowed, they've only grown. At the same time, this Congress's ability to act on these issues has slowed, as my concerns and those worldwide have grown. This one's for Smash Mouth. Let's hit the ground running and affirm this bill. The problem right now is that carbon emissions start coming and they don't stop coming. In 2019, the World Population Review reported that the United States released the second most carbon emissions worldwide, right behind China. We're emitting 4.75 billion metric tons of greenhouse gases per year. But more importantly, despite the rapidly growing rate of carbon emissions worldwide, this Congress has done nothing to slow those. Here's how you solve that, because by affirming, not only do you decrease carbon emissions on a federal scale, you directly help our constituents financially. Let's look at statewide legislation in the status quo that already implements what this bill aims to do. According to the Census Bureau and the U.S. Energy Information Administration, the states that have adopted the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, or RGGI, are among the lowest in carbon emissions, both in terms of total emission as well as emissions per capita. A 2016 report from the Congressional Research Service furthers that the 9 states that are included in RGGI are responsible for only 7% of our country's total carbon emissions. That's what the cap in cap and trade has done. But what has the trade in cap and trade done? Vox reports in 2017 that the funds collected from these cap and trade agreements created over 30,000 jobs, saved consumers $618 million on energy bills, generated $2.9 billion in regional economic growth, and produced $5.7 billion in public health benefits. That sounds great. So why haven't the other states adopted the same initiative? Well, it's the same reason for a lot of our other issues. According to Vox in 2017, that reason is political friction. The Political Economy Research Institute at the University of Massachusetts Amherst corroborates in 2021 that of the 100 companies with the highest carbon emissions, nearly 3/4 were power plant companies and nearly half were petroleum companies. Why is that important? In the status quo, it's these very companies that are lobbying against green legislation. Open Secrets, a nonprofit dedicated to following money in politics, furthers in April of this year that major American energy corporations such as ExxonMobil and Occidental Petroleum lobbied a total of $12.6 million in the first quarter of 2022 alone. As a direct result, you see political tension concerning green legislation. Passing this bill sets important precedents on 2 levels. First, it lets these companies know that this Congress will no longer put the green of their lobbying dollars before the green of our planet. But secondly, it sets a precedent of action from this Congress towards global warming. As Smash Mouth once said, the world is going to roll you. But for your constituents, you do everything in your power from stopping the world from rolling over them. Today, my fellow senators, that choice is yours. Be an all-star and pass today's legislation.
Thank you, Senator Lung, for that speech of 3 minutes and 8 seconds. All questioners, please rise. Senator Okereke.
Representative, you said in your speech, or you stated in your speech, that this bill is going to bring greater financial benefits, correct?
That's the trade and cap and trade, yes.
But you do understand the cap and trades to raise the prices of energy, which affects people who can't afford it, correct? So how's this a
Okay,
financial
yeah.
benefit?
I told you the financial benefits. We decreased yearly energy bills by
And decrease yearly
$618
energy,
million.
you still have to increase the price, so still not going to be able to get it. So how is that still a financial benefit?
No, empirics show you that we decreased $618 million
When you
on energy
decrease
bills.
this, okay, even without that, 4 million people will lose their job because of this. You do understand that, right? And that 4
Thank you,
million people who are
Senators.
losing their job is not okay.
Senator Sheikh.
Hi, Senator. So with a cap and trade system in place, that means that carbon emissions will be capped, right?
Yeah.
So the only way that companies can decrease them is by finding innovative technologies, right?
Correct.
Yeah, but doesn't that take money, and that price will go down to our consumers and will overall increase the prices for them?
How does the price decrease for consumers, and what specifically,
No,
what
it increases
specific
it
price
for
is
them
increasing?
because
Sorry,
it increases it
can
for
you,
them
can you
because
repeat that?
it increases it for them.
What
Because
price
innovative
increases? What
technologies
specific price
make up money for
increases?
the businesses.
Thank you, Senators. Questioning time has elapsed. We have 2 blocks of questioning remaining. All questioners, please rise. All right, seeing none, Chair absorbs the remaining 2 blocks of cross-examination time. Seeing as that was a speech in the sponsorship of this bill, we're now in line for a speech in the negation. All speakers, please rise. Senator Gupta, you have the floor.
I thank the chair. I'm assuming the judges with their cameras off are ready. People with their, oh, all my judges are ready? Okay. When I was a child, my teacher would sometimes have a cookie market on Fridays. Sometimes he would give them out for free, sometimes for a fee. He was really bad at regulating this. People would take the free cookies and then make fun of other people who didn't have the cookies. This is just like today's legislation. Fail this bill because the cap and trade system has proven to be ineffective in the past, and in turn, we're increasing the wealth gap. First, let me address some of Senator Lung's lackluster points. He argues that jobs were gained, but fails to connect them to this legislation. Evidence from the Washington Post in 2015 shows that over 110,000 jobs were lost directly because of cap and trade in the 20 eastern states that adopted the EPA's policies. Now let's move to the reality of cap and trade's environmental impacts. When California started cap and trade in 2013, they had a lofty goal of reducing emissions by 40% by 2030. Right now, they are nowhere near that track. An analysis by Lisa Song for ProPublica in November 2019 found that oil and gas companies increased their carbon emissions 3.5% since cap and trade began in 2013. This is the exact opposite effect that the affirmation argues for. But what's the human impact here? When you pass, you are directly hurting low-income and minority communities. The majority of oil and gas companies reside in the same neighborhoods as low-income and minority communities. These companies are disproportionately buying up carbon allowances and polluting in these fence-line communities. A report by phys.org tells us the story of a 13-year-old Ulysses Flores. He lives in a Californian community with 87% Latinos. They live right next to an oil and gas or other area with a lot of pollutants known as a fence line community. They noticed that their community would get nosebleeds, diagnosis of asthma, and breathing problems much more than their friends in other neighborhoods. Worst of all, many of them got diagnosed with cancer. Doctors concluded that the medical issues were being directly caused by the horrible air quality in this area. And more, a study by the NACP in 2021, Black people are 75% more likely to live in these fence line communities. The California cap and trade system and others around the world inspired by California are taking too long to see results, and in turn hurting the communities that need something like this the least. This is only worsening the gaping wealth gap in America. The climate is heating up rapidly and people are suffering. Instead of saying, oh, well, we'll see what happens and we'll work it out, Bill, we need legislation that will take action now. This is not the answer. Fail.
Thank you, Senator Gupta, for that speech of 2 minutes and 50 seconds. We're now in line for 4 blocks of cross-ex. All questioners, please rise. Senator Lime.
Hey, Senator, you mentioned how they're polluting these fence line communities. How is this any different than what's happening right now?
I'm saying that this is bad because it's reducing the
Yeah,
wealth.
you're saying it's bad, exactly. But
I'm
all
talking
you're
about the
saying,
wealth.
if we were able to pass this legislation, that would mean that they can't pollute as much, right?
No,
Effectively helping
I
these
showed you
people.
evidence that these companies in fence line communities are actually polluting more.
Yeah, well, they pollute, but wouldn't this passing this result in them polluting less? And the main reason why is because they
No,
can't
because I just
afford
showed you evidence
pay
from
more.
California where they already.
Thank you, senators. Senator Arpradon.
Thank you, Senator. You mentioned how this program would cause job losses. What was the warrant other than just like the things you provided for why that would happen?
At the beginning, so Senator Long, in his speech, he mentioned the job growth in the areas with cap and trade, but he failed to connect that.
Yeah, but how would this lead to job losses? Like, how are you connecting that to job losses?
Because the oil companies are it costs more for them, and they're.
What do you mean? How does that lead to job losses, though?
What?
How does that lead to job losses, though?
Thank you, senators. Senator Tian.
I think the chair. So when you say that all of your points, they surround on the economy, right? So what's more important in the long term, the environment or the economy, or both?
I wasn't talking so much about the economy. I was more so talking about the wealth gap.
But when you talk about the welfare of these low-income people and how much they're spending on public welfare and health, isn't that the economy in itself?
No, I'm talking about how they're living. My entire last part of my speech was about their health problems.
So therefore, if this bill is capping the amount of emissions and therefore increasing their air quality, isn't that helping low-income constituents?
Thank you, senators. Senator Yoon.
Yeah, so Senator, you mentioned that California's goal was to lose 40% of their emissions by 2030 and that they're, quote, nowhere near it. But isn't this what this bill does? Even though they don't reach it by 2030, it gets the ball rolling so that they could become a greener country in total?
No, the evidence that I gave is that companies increase their carbon emissions by 3.5%.
But you mentioned that California's goal by themselves with this cap and trade in their state was to lose 40%.
Yeah, so they failed their goal.
But they still decreased by a good amount, no?
No, I just said that they increased by 3.5%.
California's by itself?
Yeah, oil and gas companies.
No, but that's not.
Thank you, senators. Questioning time has elapsed. Seeing as that was a speech in the negation, we're now in line for a speech in the affirmation. All speakers, please rise. Senator Sheikh, you have the floor unopposed.
Hello, everyone. That's Senator Sheikh, spelled S-H-A-I-K, speaking for the first time in this legislative session. Judges, please give me a thumbs up when you're ready, and I'll get started. All right. Political complacency is a privilege reserved for those who have the luxury of not needing to care. It looks like the US starting wars and never bothering to pick up the pieces. It looks like states passing xenophobic policy and ignoring the families it leaves behind. And it looks like individuals, members of Congress who rather shake hands and take pictures rather than changing the system and shaking it. In a time when we were literally killing our planet, we've lost our privilege to wait. But more importantly, if we fail, we will have lost our way to live. So let's first understand the problem that's polluting our status quo. The industry sector of the United States is taking up a large chunk of CO2 emissions, and the progress we made is far too little. The United States Environmental Protection Agency on April 14, 2022 tells us that including both direct and indirect emissions associated with electricity use, industry shares of total US greenhouse gases in 2020 was 30%, making it the largest contributor of greenhouse gases of any sector. Even though this sector has seen some kind of progress, we're not getting it quickly enough. In fact, Brookings tells us on October 25th, 2021, net zero pledges are powerful, visible, simple, and utterly insufficient. At best, we still are over-emitting, causing for the rise in global emissions. Our country has taken actions to combat climate change, but it isn't enough. And we need to act now more than ever, or else our constituents nor our future generation will have the luxury of living in an environmentally stable world. So here's how this bill will target the industry sector to give our constituents a breath of fresh air. Under Section 1 of this bill, we're enacting a cap and trade system where we cap the amount of carbon dioxide that industries can produce and create allowances in the amount of tons that are divided amongst the industries relative to their size. In simple terms, we created an artificial carbon market which reduces emissions. This method has had extreme amounts of success, both foreign and domestic, both foreign and domestically wise. The Environmental Defense Fund on October 2018 tells us in European Union's emissions trading system, capped emissions from stationary structures were 29% lower in 2018 than when the program started in 2005. Additionally, Energy News Network tells us on April 6, 2022, that since the first auction in 2008, power plant emissions in the RGGI region have fallen by about 50% due to cap and trade systems. The industry sector, which produces the most of our carbon emissions, will see a great decrease in carbon emissions once we pass, and gives us a crucial opportunity to stop global warming. If we don't pass, that won't occur. Senator Gupta, the very people who are advocating for will only face even more pollution in their communities if you don't pass, because the oil and gas industries you're worried about will be forced to decrease carbon emissions. Regardless of how cloudy the future may be and uncertain our planet's outcome will be, passing will give a breath of fresh air to millions of people who are lost in the smoke and mirrors of environmental injustice.
Thank you, Senator Sheikh, for that speech of 3 minutes and 9 seconds. All questioners, please rise. Senator Okereke.
Great speech, Representative, but how do you support the fact that when we put this cap agreement, that it will cause the massive job losses, which the last question period acts as well?
Wait, so I don't really get how it will cause massive job losses.
Okay, because when you put these cut on these emissions, they're directly hurting these industries that are substantially providing energy, which will cause people to lose their jobs. That's the fundamental issue of this.
Wait, let me finish. The cap and trade systems are targeting oil and gas industries. They're not.
And what do you think functions these oil and gas industries?
They're not transferring transportation or heating systems, which doesn't
We're
affect.
putting a tax. This is
thank you, senators. Senator Gupta.
Not a tax.
I mentioned in my speech that this in California, when the same thing was implemented, allowed oil and gas companies to increase their emissions by 3.5% because the cap and trade system was not stringent enough.
Okay, so there have been mistakes in the past, but with the mistakes, we learn from them. And
what is this bill?
We'll have policies in place to learn from them. We can decide what they are. We can decide what they are for later. But I'm saying a cap and trade system is beneficial for our economy, and we cannot wait too long.
This bill changes nothing. It doesn't mention of anything.
No, this bill adds.
Thank you, senators. Questioning time has elapsed. Seeing as that was a speech in the affirmation, we're now in line for a speech in the negation. All speakers, please rise. Senator A. Pradhan, you have the floor unopposed.
I thank the chair. Please give me an indication when I may begin. Loophole. Oxford defines a loophole as an ambiguity or inadequacy in the law or a set of rules. Merriam-Webster defines it as an ambiguity or omission in the text through which the intent of a statute, contract, or obligation may be evaded. No matter which definition you accept, we can all say that loopholes are always something law should try to avoid. Unfortunately, this bill is riddled with loopholes, which is why we must fail. So far, the affirmative has told you how this bill is helping the environment. But the problem is that even at their highest ground, the impact described in the AF's argument falls flat. A report by Rhodium Group found that China's greenhouse gas emissions in 2019 exceeded those of the US and other developed nations combined, with China accounting for more than 27% of total global emissions. The affirmation is painting a picture of the US emitting the most greenhouse gas emissions and being completely responsible for our climate crisis. But the reality is that China has long passed the US in emissions. Even if we assume that the bill will actually help the environment, which other representatives on my side have shown that doesn't actually happen, without a global system in place, this bill does not have a strong impact. Now that we've asserted why the AF's impact falls flat, let's look at another reason why we should fail this bill. Fail because it won't have any actual change due to the rise of emission credits. In the current status quo, companies are basically allowed to emit as much as they want without any restrictions. This has called for some sort of limitations to be placed on companies, which is reasonable. But that's where today's legislation comes in. Section 1 talks about placing carbon allowances on companies and letting them buy and sell credits of these allowances. The problem here is that this has no real impact on the industries that it is targeting the most. Targeted industries such as the fossil fuel industry are so reliant on these sources that it's just cheaper to buy allowances instead of actually lowering their emissions. In fact, Investopedia says emission credits and even penalties and fines for exceeding the cap limit are usually cheaper than converting to cleaner technologies and resources. This is the case, for example, for industries that use fossil fuels. This means that cap and trade is not a real incentive for these industries to change their practices. Why is this so important? Because passing this bill doesn't actually impact the industries that are being targeted the most. Instead, all it does is turn carbon into a commodity to be bought and sold. By doing this, we simply give companies another loophole to exploit, while the real issue of climate change is left unaddressed. Like Representative Jay said, instead of actually helping people that are affected by these power plants, this bill does nothing to stop these companies from hurting the environment and the low-income constituents in these communities. The AF is completely right about climate change being a huge problem, but passing this bill doesn't solve anything and only gives more companies more loopholes to utilize. Fail.
Thank you, Senator Aperdon, for that speech of 3 minutes and 1 second. All questioners, please rise. Senator Lung.
Hey, Senator. So on average, carbon emissions have fallen since 2005, right?
Do you have data that backs it up? I
can't bring up a card in cross-examination, but
Okay.
yes, it has fallen since 2005. And part of that has been due to cap and trade laws, right? After 10 states adopt cap and trade laws.
Do you have any evidence from my speech or your speech that that's true?
Yeah, I brought that up in my speech that on average, carbon emissions were dropping 5%.
Because I don't know if you heard, because Representative Jay had contradicting evidence. So I don't know if you can like trust one side over the other.
No, Representative Gupta told us that 3.5% increase in emissions, but on average, it was still decreasing.
Thank you, senators. Senator Sheikh.
Hi, Senator. You agree that there were loopholes in previous legislation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't you think Congress will know that there are loopholes and will fix them?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's why we shouldn't pass this
So if
bill.
we fix this legislation and we fix the loopholes, isn't that more incentives as to why you should pass?
We're currently arguing about passing this. We're currently arguing about passing this current bill, not a bill that's fixed. So
when we enact the policies for this bill, we're fixing the loopholes.
This bill also has loopholes.
Thank you, senators. Questioning time has elapsed. Senator Arperdon, is that a motion?
No.
All right. Seeing as that was a speech in the negation, we're now in line for a speech in the affirmation. All speakers, please rise. We're looking for a speech in the affirmation. All speakers, please rise. Is that a motion?
Motion.
State that.
Yes.
Is there a second?
I couldn't quite hear you. What did you say?
Oh, sorry.
It's a motion to an indefinite recess. Is there a second? All right, are there any objections? Seeing none, we move to an indefinite recess.
Oh, why are we having a recess?
Because there's no affirmation.
Can we just break the cycle?
You want to have an app?
Have another nag.
Because I'm prepping what's it called in a crystal, and I can give a minute 30 of it right now, but I need more info. So does anyone planning on being on the app?
Wouldn't it be easier to just break the cycle than calling it indefinite
But
recess?
if we have even numbers, then we shouldn't really break the cycle because then we have to break the cycle again later.
Like frowned upon.
Exactly.
The cycle.
If somebody has an app, then they should get the app.
Okay, can we just quickly take splits?
I have an app, but it'll take a bit.
Yeah, because like I'm doing the crystal. So who has an egg here?
I have an egg.
3. Oh, 4. That leaves, how many people have gone 4? That leaves like 3 of us, I believe. So who's planning on doing an app? Are you guys planning on giving late rounds or refutation speeches? Or so, I think it's best.
I can go in a second. Just give me a bit.
Okay.
How about we
So-
call
2 minutes?
like a 10-minute or 20-minute recess? We can have time to prep, and
10
then we can come back.
20-minute
Then,
recess.
well,
You-
At
it's
most
not.
5.
Our
No,
stops.
oh,
Our
You don't need
that's
a
true.
recess.
Okay,
ends
so
in
a 5-minute recess then.
Will that be enough? I don't
We
think we
have.
need over 10 minutes because our stop is supposed to be at 5, and we should end by 6. Yeah.
All right, whatever y'all do, I recommend you don't break cycle, and I recommend you don't continue this recess any longer. It has to go on. So if someone
Yeah.
is going to step up and give an AF, that would be fantastic.
So whenever y'all are ready, please tell me so I can rescind my motion, or not rescind, end my recess.
I believe ending the recess is the PO's job.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I'll take a motion to end the indefinite recess. Senator Lyon.
Motion to end indefinite recess.
Is there a second? Any objections? All right, seeing none, that motion is moved. We're now in line for a speech in the affirmation. All speakers, please rise. Senator Lai, you have the floor.
Thank you. Give me a second to set my timer. Okay. I'm assuming everyone's ready. Okay, great. In kindergarten, we're always taught to clean up after ourselves, to recycle when necessary, and to never litter because we love the environment. But it seems that the 4- and 5-year-olds are more enthusiastic about saving the planet than the biggest corporations in our country, which are the root of our emissions problem. It's time to take these corporations back to school with this legislation. End of the day, you must pass to save lives. The WHO reported last year that 7 million people die every single year due to air pollution. 7 million people die. And the biggest chunk of where most of this pollution comes from is corporations. In fact, a groundbreaking 2017 report from Carbon Majors found that 100 companies are responsible for 71% of all carbon emissions, meaning that companies are responsible for the majority of these problems, and it's their duty to fix them. In fact, unlike what Senator Gupta says, this does not lose energy jobs. We found this year that over 40% of total energy jobs are renewable energies, with green energy being one of the fastest growing industries in the nation. That's an incentive for more to invest towards green energy, creating new jobs. Add on to that is Senator Lung's statistics of how cap and trade laws create more than 30,000 jobs, and Senator Gupta loses all his warrants to how jobs are actually lost. Senator Gupta also tells you that prices will increase, but backs it up with no evidence or no warrant. Vox in 2017 reports that cap and trade laws save $618 million in energy bills for our constituents. That's a ton. But cap and trade laws will also cause companies to invest. As previous senators have said, this results in higher prices for other countries or for other companies, meaning that they want to invest in order to save money. Senator Gupta says that energy companies' emissions rose by 3%. But when we look at the impacts as a whole, cap and trade laws have been proven to be objectively a good thing. Senator Gupta cherry picks his data and forgets to give you the full picture. Unlike what Senator Gupta tells his work, a UC Berkeley study found in 2020 that after California passed a cap and trade law virtually identical to this one presented before you, the law resulted in a statewide drop of 13% in total emissions from 2004 to 2016. Sure, maybe these energy companies might have increased on the best note on its highest ground, but even then, overall emissions in the state has decreased by 13%. But what's the impact of this? End of the day, it will save lives. NPR found that in 2021, that if the world was able to cut our greenhouse gas emissions to 0 by 2050, that would save 73 million lives. Passing this legislation would literally save millions in lives, and all we need is your one vote. People come to us for change, we fail. People come to us for progress, we still fail. But when this legislation comes to our docket, we pass. Don't let your fear fuel the fires of devastation in inaction.
Thank you, Senator Lai, for that speech of 2 minutes and 56 seconds. All questioners, please rise. Senator Bala.
So, Senator, you talk about how the cap and trade system would save $618 million in energy bills for our constituents, correct? So, what about the 4 million jobs that Senator Okereke explained that would be lost?
Well, as I mentioned to you, we are constantly seeing this increase in green energy jobs, and obviously, if these companies are moving
Right,
to
but
green
do you
energy,
think
they're
that
going to
steady
have to
increase?
change the jobs over.
Right, but
They're
do
going to
you
have
think
to
people are going
change
to
the
find a
jobs over
job?
to green energy.
But how fast do you think those jobs are going to come in?
It's going to be pretty fast because already 40% of all energy jobs are from green energy.
Okay,
Thank you,
but how do you know that?
Senator Tian.
So you mentioned that cap and trade will incentivize companies to invest in other companies and therefore green energy, right?
Yeah, invest in
Right.
green
So
energy.
how does
instead
this
of
bill
fossil
in
fuels.
particular provide that incentive at all?
Well, it's the whole idea because they don't want to pay more for these green energy to have to
But
spend
converting
in
to
fossil
green
fuels.
energy also takes money, right? So where does this bill provide incentive for them to do that?
Well, yeah, but as of right now, they don't want to spend that money right now. And on top of that, like we've already found
Converting
that
to
green energy is actually cheaper. In fact, 2/3 of
But
all green
converting
energy
is not cheaper. While it may
than
be
fossil fuels.
cheaper.
Thank you, senators. Questioning time has elapsed. Senator Bala, is that a motion?
Yeah, motion to suspend the rules to extend the questioning period.
By how many blocks?
By 2.
Is there a second? All votes in favor, please rise. All right, that is 6-7 plus Senator Bala, which is again just 8. So that motion does not pass. And yes, Judge Rover brings up a good point. We're over the soft stop. Let's cut it out. Seeing as that was a speech in the affirmative, we're now in line for a speech in the negation. All questioners, please, all speakers, please rise. Senator Okereke, you have the floor on recency.
I thank the chair. This is Senator Okereke speaking for the second time in today's chamber. At the leisure of the PO and judges, just tell me if you're not ready. All right, cool. I'll begin with my first word. We all hate a tan gone wrong, especially me. However, the greenhouse effects on the earth is equally hated upon. And yes, it is inevitable for us to end this cause. However, this bill does not solve this issue, has many technical issues the AF is still failing to understand. This debate has become heated. But first, I'd like to clear up some confusion which Senator Lung fails to understand. The Institute of Foreign Energy champions that the proposals are very, very costly and economical damaging, which many representatives on my side champion. Senator Lung attempts to avoid this cost by saying it simply won't work due to fundamental logistics and issues that it will hurt. This bill would increase the cost of gasoline by anywhere from 60% to 144% and increase the cost of electricity by 77 to 129%, which this article also explains. Now, let me answer the question which Senator Gupta failed to answer during the line of questioning. The IFE explains, while further, up to 4 million Americans will lose their jobs under this program, which amounts to $4,000 to $8,000 loss in depositable income per household. This is because a cap and trade program for carbon dioxide emissions will reduce the number of jobs in industries that produce carbon-based energies, which are used for intensely to produce these processing. So Representative Lung, how is the financial benefit? I fail to understand this. However, let's look at the more technical side of passing this bill, which Senator Gupta does not mention. The CBO states that the cap and trade harms energy security, which nobody on my side has brought up yet. Claiming this would improve the energy security is backwards. A cap and trade scheme will undermine erode our nation's energy security. When many people express common concern about energy security, their concern about oil is imported. The fossil energy article explains that the cap and trade scheme for carbon dioxide have not worked. You want evidence? The European Emissions Trading Scheme, ETS, began in 2005. The first phase from 2005 to 2007 did not reduce carbon emissions. Instead, overall emissions increased by 1.9% over this period. Reason is simple. European politicians know the cap and trade is so economically harmful and do not want these policies to cost more jobs, especially during the difficult times currently in the world. Secondly, let's fix the contradictory stance that the app is on currently. Investopedia explains that the article nowhere fixes the fundamental issue the bill has. Senator Ayapradam champions a portion of this. One issue is establishing a cap trade policy is whether a government would impose a correct cap trade policy producers on emissions. A cap that is too high may lead to a higher emission, while a cap that is too low would be as a burden on the industry and cost that was passed on the consumers in the first place. Senators, I see the impact of climate change even on myself. Considering I don't want an unwanted tan, considering I don't want to be darker than I already am. I actually want to be. However, the act does not bring any substantial evidence for how we can fix this bill to actually help the environment. So stand with me and negate this bill.
Thank you, Senator Okereke, for that speech of 3 minutes and 4 seconds. All questioners, please rise. Senator Patel.
Thank you. You explained that this legislation will not help our environmental endeavors, but isn't this legislation to help remove, or not remove, to help prevent any further damage?
And we have seen from other times that hasn't happened. So how are you going to presume? So how are you going to presume it's going to occur? Like example, I use in my speech the ETS. None of this increased
where it hasn't worked.
It hasn't worked, but nothing in this article suggests that that's going to occur. I'm asking for definite
examples because Senator Lung provided that the Europeans, Chinese cities, and provinces.
You have to understand, Representative.
So how does this even take place?
Because
thank you, senators. Okay. Senator Lime.
Hey, Senator, your side keeps mentioning how this is going to result in losing jobs, but how exactly will that happen if already 40% of the people in energy work for renewable energy sources, and it'll be
when they work for renewable energy sources and you're trying to reduce if they're working for renewable energy sources and you're trying to reduce these things that are going on for them, it's inevitable they're going to lose their jobs, because why else are they working if they're being cut from their basic profits they're getting from?
Right now
they're losing money.
For people who work, so let's say people who work in energy jobs right now, they'll just switch to renewable energy jobs instead.
And how do you know they're going to do that? From the last thing,
why wouldn't they?
Has that happened? We don't have no evidence that's going to happen.
Yes, exactly does, which you can see.
Thank you, senators. Questioning time has elapsed. Seeing as that was a speech in the negation, we're now in line for a speech in the affirmation. All speakers, please rise. Senator Yoon, you have the floor unopposed.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Senator Yoon, Y-O-O-N. I am at the leisure of all those above me, and with any indication from the judges that they are ready, I will begin. Cool. During the past Earth Day, 1 billion people from 192 countries flooded the digital landscape with words of climate action. It's time to stop ignoring these pleas for help and call for change. Pass to rally for the environment and for the people. I agree with Senator Okereke once they said that if a carbon tax is implemented, it will lead to higher costs in things like oil and electricity. Now, this is completely understandable. The cost of goods that require carbon will increase if a tax is imposed. However, if we don't levy a tax, then what happens when we simply reach the end of our fossil fuel reserves? Well, basic supply and demand principles tells us that when scarcity is present, the prices will increase. In essence, it's just a matter of time until the price of carbon goods increases. Now, let's say we do nothing. Then how much time do we have left? A 2019 article by Stanford University's Millennium Alliance for Humanity and the Biosphere estimates that the Earth only has 53 years of oil reserves left at the current rate of consumption. So why wait? Whether now or later, there will be a time when carbon sees a rise of cost. Let's stay proactive and attack this plague while we still have time. Like Senator Lung said, the states that adopted a form of cap and trade systems have led to extremely low percentages of the country's carbon emissions. Senator Abraham says otherwise, and that fossil fuel companies will not change due to it simply being cheaper for the companies. However, an MIT quote from 2022 states that economics predicted that over time, polluting companies will face pressures from their customers to eliminate the extra cost of their CO2 emissions. Companies that can offer lower carbon products will be able to charge less because they won't have to pay these taxes, drawing customers away from their more polluting competitors. So this means that companies are between failing as a company with no customers or changing into a more eco-friendly company. The obvious answer is to change into a more eco-friendly company, the exact goal of this bill. Now, the hidden negative that Senator Gupta mentions is that this carbon tax will lead to a greater wealth gap. Now, this is also potentially true, as an increase of cost in something like gas will affect those in the lower class more, as it represents a greater proportion of their income. Forbes, in fact, estimated that in 2022, the maximum increase of these costs from a carbon tax will bring around $200 per month per citizen, or around $2,400 a year. However, there is also a hidden cost with staying with carbon. In June of 2021, the National Resource Defense Council reported that air pollution and climate change costs each average American $2,500 a year in healthcare. With the same principles as before, this is an even greater cost that will also affect the lower class at a higher proportion. Will a carbon tax simply remove all the air pollution and climate change? Well, probably not. But it's a momentous step in bringing the additional cost with these issues down. So even if there is an additional cost that will come with a carbon tax, ignoring the issue outright will lead to greater cost due to health reasons and will be coupled with the issue that the price of carbon will still increase just 50 years down the road. Pass the rally for the people and bring climate action into the real world, from fantasy to fiction to a fact.
Thank you, Senator Yoon, for that speech of 2 minutes and 57 seconds. All questioners, please rise. Senator Aperdon.
Hi, Senator. Great speech. If fossil fuel companies can just buy emission credits instead of shifting to clean energies, how is this bill effective?
But even if they do buy emission credits, that means that they have to use that extra cost somewhere else, and it will likely lead to either greater cost for employees or for consumers or for less jobs, like you guys mentioned. So because of that, there are so many negatives that come with it that it's better for them to just switch to a more eco-friendly option.
But if fossil fuels are their main source, then why would they switch to eco?
Yeah, but like my quote said, there are evidence that they will switch over as it's better for their health as a company.
Senator Gupta.
In my speech, I didn't mention how prices will affect low-income areas. I mentioned how oil and gas companies are polluting these fence line communities.
You said that because of that, and that there will be less jobs, that there will be a greater wealth gap. And I agreed with that statement. That
wasn't my point. I didn't argue about jobs. That was a refutation against Senator, I think, one of the senators. My argument was that these oil and gas companies are polluting these fence line communities. That's disproportionately polluting them.
How is that not what you said if you brought that up in a refutation?
No, that was a whole different point.
Thank you, senators. Questioning time has elapsed. Seeing as that was a speech in the affirmation, we're now in line for a speech in the negation. All speakers, please rise. Senator Bala, you have the floor unopposed.
Hello, my name is Senator Bala. I'm speaking for the second time today. I'll be ready when the judges, parliamentarians, and POs are. All right, I think you guys are ready, so I'm just gonna start. So, time is running out. All serious scientists agree that we must fix the climate change issue, and we must do so fast. In 2009, our aim was to bring down our CO2 emissions to 350 ppm, but now, 13 years later, we're sitting at about 415 ppm and are seeing the beginning of some of the worst climate disasters. While I fully support the idea behind this bill, we cannot pass it because it carries with it a host of additional issues that would only make our current situation far, far worse. First, I would like to refute a huge piece of evidence that the affirmative uses repeatedly. Both Senators Lung and Shaikh use the RGGI, an inherently flawed program, to support their arguments. They explain how carbon dioxide emissions in the states of the RGGI program fell due to the cap-and-trade system. This could not be further from the truth. In reality, the CO2 emissions decline was a trend that began far before the program took in effect. In fact, an analysis by the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority concluded that, quote, fuel switching from petroleum and coal to natural gas that began before the program's introduction was a primary driver of declining CO2 emissions, end quote. In RGGI states from 2005 to 2009, end quote. So, no, Senator Lung, the reduction from 2005 that you use was not from the cap-and-trade system. The affirmative carefully chooses the details of this program that support their argument without actually giving us the full picture. Adding on to Senator Aperdon's exposition of loopholes this bill hasn't accounted for, The Economist explains, quote, the direct result of this system is known as carbon leakage, which is when a business or an industry relocates from an area with high environmental regulations to somewhere where the rules are more relaxed, end quote. A huge flaw of this bill is that it simply would cause companies to source their production somewhere else in the world where they would have no restrictions. Now, this isn't just a prediction. No, this actually occurs. In the cap-and-trade system established in the EU simply conceded to companies that were likely to carbon leak by just giving them more of a cap to emit more carbon. So, what's the guarantee that this won't happen in the US? the affirmative loves to talk about the economic benefits of the cap and trade, but companies leaving the U.S. But companies leaving the U.S. and a decrease in competitiveness in the U.S. certainly is an economic benefit that they talk about. Ultimately, with something so urgent and decisive as our climate crisis, we need to work smart, and passing this bill is certainly not a smart decision. Therefore, my fellow senators, I urge you all to make the right choice and vote in negation of this truly irrational bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Bala, for that speech of 2 minutes and 52 seconds. All questioners, please rise. Senator Ewan.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. So you mentioned that a huge flaw in this bill would be something in the terms of that there would be the companies would continue this consumption just somewhere else in the world, correct?
Yes, that's known as
However,
carbon
if
leakage.
they have this consumption somewhere else in the world, for them to bring this XYZ product into America, that will come with an additional shipping cost or other fees with that will lead to an increased price. So then why wouldn't consumers just turn to another option?
Because it's for the companies, it's still far cheaper to do that than to follow the regulations to follow the regulations of the cap and trade system.
But doesn't this become cheaper for the consumers to go to a different company?
Well,
thank you, Senators.
Yes,
Senator Long.
Can you tell me examples of American companies that have shifted base to other countries because of cap and trade laws?
No, I can't give you an example of an American company because
okay, can you tell me about any companies that have shifted outside of RGGI states even? They're still in the country, but they just shifted outside the state. Can you give me an example of that?
I can't give you an example of a company in an RGGI state, but I can tell you that there are companies in the EU, and this is a fact. The companies in the EU are carbon leaking.
Okay,
That's why the EU
and the US
government,
have different
has
laws,
resorted to giving
they
these
have different
companies
import tax laws, so you can't really compare the two based off economic decisions.
Right, but
thank you, Senators. Questioning time has elapsed. Seeing as that was a speech in the negation, we're now in line for a speech in the affirmation. All speakers, please rise. Between Senators Patel and R. Pradhan, that will go to Senator Patel.
Pradhan can go. I sat back down.
Okay. Senator R. Pradhan, you have the floor then.
All right, thank you. This is Senator R. Pradhan speaking for the second time in this chamber. You know who I am. All right, let's start on. Our world is no different from the classic series that we may all remember, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Just like Ong, my fellow senators must pass this bill and bend our polluted and dirty air into a clean and healthy sky. It is our responsibility to protect the millions of lives that are at stake here, and complacency will solve nothing. The central question in this session that both sides must understand is whether the cap and trade program can help our nation's economy, energy, and environment. Let me answer the points by the negative that senators on my side could not. First, Representative Gupta and Okereke talk about jobs loss. But according to Scientific American, jobs are further improved. Research shows that jobs have increased in states with cap and trade programs. Representative Okereke and Gupta, let me explain why. Under a cap and trade program, contractors can hire multiple individuals, and over a period of time, this creates a net increase in jobs. The analysis you provide is simply short-sighted. Okay, we may lose some jobs in the recent status quo, but if we look towards the future in the next decade, the United States will see economic benefits. Next, Representative Gupta, you talk as to how several poor people are unable to access proper air quality, but the cap and trade program can solve this. As the California government writes, a 2018 study from the University of California, Santa Barbara found that air quality in environmental justice communities with large cap and trade facilities actually improved more than air quality in wealthier neighborhoods since the cap and trade program took effect, which means the lower income people that you are championing are the people that this program can solve. Next, Representative Pradhan, you talk about this China situation as to how China is the largest player in this global market in terms of emissions. This is a purely defensive argument. Come on, Senator, this is congressional debate, not the New England Patriots. But I'll answer that anyways. China is seeking to make emissions 0%, which leaves the United States as the next major player. And our climate action can spill over globally, which means passing this cap and trade program can help resolve climate change on a global level. Next, Senator Pradhan, you talk about this loophole argument, but the idea is that cap and trade agreements are bought by other companies, meaning overall the carbon and greenhouse emissions are still significantly limited. Next, Senator Bala, let me give you the guarantee that companies will not leave the US. First is the problem with financial troll. And as OPB explains in a recent article, is that it's more of an economic loss to leave the United States and set up facilities in other nations than to curb emissions, which means that many companies will still reside in the United States. However, let's look towards the empirical benefits of cap and trade. As the ARFF writes, cap and trade programs can increase locally operated businesses. And as the Advocacy SBA writes, that small businesses are the lifeblood of the United States economy. They create 2/3 of net jobs and drive US innovation and competitiveness. So this innovation argument and economical argument goes straight to the AF. So long ago, our world lived in harmony until climate change attacked. Let our nation become the next avatar, because although we have a lot to learn, just like Ang, we can truly save the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Arperdon, for that speech of 3 minutes and 10 seconds. All questioners, please rise. Senator Bala.
So, Senator, you say that it would be more costly for companies to move and set up shop elsewhere in other countries, right? But are you also taking in account the cap and trade system? Because for the companies now it would be much more expensive, because this statistic you're giving is not including the cap and trade system.
The statistic is based on the cap and trade system. We talk as to how moving offshore is more of a damage to their profits than remaining in the United States with emission caps.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Aperdon.
Hi, Senator. Great speech. Can you explain why the companies won't use the loopholes?
Our idea is that this loophole that you talk about relies on them buying an over amount of these emission caps. But the idea is that the emission caps are on balance still limited. They're just buying them from other companies. So it's not going to go over the barrier.
But if larger companies buy them from smaller
yeah, they buy them from, even if they buy them from smaller companies, the emissions will still be capped on a national level.
Yeah, but you're not letting the larger companies stop them from limiting emissions, are you?
We're still limiting.
Thank you, senators. Questioning time has elapsed. Seeing as that was a speech in the affirmation, we're now in line for a speech in the negation. All speakers, please rise. Senator Gomez, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. My name is Senator Gomez, speaking for the second time in this legislative session. Judges and PO, please give me an indication when you're ready. See the PO, and I assume the judges are ready. PO, my person. Thank you. This bill is like my DIY porch, bad idea and a bad execution. This chamber has had multiple clear misconceptions of both the status quo and the country after the implementation of this bill. Let's take this time to clean up my broken porch and see why this bill must fail. Let's begin. Our sponsors, Senator Lung and Senator Shaikh, vetoes the RGGI, a flawless state plan for cap and trade. However, this is not what we are dealing with. Senator Aperdon spots a loophole in this very bill, which is that emissions will still be present and would rather create a market. This was the very issue that caused Senator Gupta's statistic that California's emissions increased 3.5%. On top of this, Senator Bala found a flaw in Senator Lung's miraculous decrease under RGGI. The sponsor's statistics occurred before RGGI's implementation in the 7 states that have it. On top of this, Senator Gupta draws the fact to minorities who share a fence with oil and gas companies. From this ignored backfire, the lives of the constituents will be in danger. And while in this matter, Senator Arperdon, must I remind you of California's 3.5% increase in emissions once more. Moving on, let me address the ongoing economic confusion in this chamber. Senator Lai states that renewable energy sources will create more jobs than carbon companies. On the other hand, Senator Oguiki claims that we will lose 4 million jobs. Now it's time for the truth. Yale University in 2022 expresses that it's highly unlikely that renewable energy companies have the ability to take off anytime soon, even with a cap and trade system, which wipes out Senator Lai's claim. Senator Oguiki and Gupta also bring up the massive economic loss from this bill, contradictory to Senator Lung and Lai's point of economic benefits. But once again, these economic benefits occurred under RGGI, a clearly flawed piece of evidence. All in all, it is clear once we clean up the broken porch why we must fail this bill. I encourage you to save the status quo and fail this piece of legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Gomez, for that speech of 2 minutes and 15 seconds. All questioners, please rise. Senator Long.
Do companies have the ability to adapt after this bill is passed?
All right, I think he froze. We'll give him a moment to come back.
I'm gonna like temporarily turn our cameras off for like internet.
All right. Hey, can you hear us? All right, there we are. Senator Lung, you can restart your block.
Okay, so do companies have the ability to adapt after this bill is passed?
Could you clarify that question? I didn't quite understand.
Okay, so this bill passes and goes into effect in 2025, right? You're saying green energy can't overtake traditional energy, but can you say the same in 5 years, especially considering green energy is one of the fastest growing market segments in energy?
Yes, actually, the Yale University study that found this used like a 10-year measure to see if companies.
Okay, it's already at 40% right now, right? So why can it increase more than that? And then wouldn't that just overtake
what is that
traditional
40%?
energy?
What is
Thank
that
you,
40%?
senators. Senator Tian.
Hi, Senator. So the affirmation actually contradicted your point about how this increases carbon emissions, but if this bill were to decrease carbon emissions, then why haven't more companies switched to green energy so far?
Could you repeat that one more time? I had never said that this would increase. It would increase carbon emissions in California, as we've shown.
But you restated another senator's point, which said that they would increase.
They would increase carbon emissions. Yeah, I don't see the question.
Right, but the question is why haven't more companies changed to sustainable energy in order to
As I
capture
said,
this?
yeah, the Yale University.
Thank you,
study
senators. Questioning time has elapsed. Seeing as that was a speech in the negation, we're now in line for a speech in the affirmation. All speakers, please rise. I'm going to give everyone a moment just to turn their cameras back on. All right. All speakers in the affirmation, please rise. Senator Patel, you have the floor unopposed.
I am Senator Patel speaking for the second time in this legislative session. For the judges, I'll just assume you're ready unless there's any indication of otherwise. Okay. The pace of global warming is accelerating. The state of impact is devastating. Time is limited. We are reaching a tipping point in which reversibility is no longer a viable option. Let me end this debate on the right end, the affirmation. First, pass this legislation because cap and trade is effective. Throughout this debate, we have witnessed various arguments and inconsistencies of debate, ranging from effectiveness to ineffectiveness. Let me define you and take you through this argument. The negation senators Gupta, A. Pradhan, and Okereke championed that this legislation is ineffective by eating up our constituents' financial viability. But more eco-friendly options are always viable, as Senator Lung had explained. Negation side A. Pradhan, Okereke, and Bala stated that programs don't work and have failed. These programs have shown no effectivity, but have failed to mention how in any places or any sources stating that this is true. Fellow senators have shown that European, Chinese cities, provinces, and local states have implemented these and received great success. On top of that, MIT explained that a well-designed cap and trade system is both environmentally efficient and cost efficient. Because of the more accurate monitoring of emissions, it will be reduced and money will be saved. Another concern of negation. Second, pass this legislation because of the economic benefits. Once again, we've been very split on this, but let me take you through this. The negation senators Gupta claimed that because of that this causes a loss of jobs, but this legislation actually brings back our economy. Senator Lin was able to successfully show that this legislation would actually bring jobs up by 47% by bringing in economically friendly companies. Senator Bao and Okereke are concerned about the lack of jobs once again. Senator Long also explained that this legislation will bring 30K hard jobs, providing relief for the inevitable upcoming recession. Senator Okereke stated that this tax would eat up our economy, but Senator Yoon explained that these companies mainly affected by this ultimately have a choice to become economically friendly. And there's been a debate of leaving the nation and for more economic benefits. But at the end of the day, it's cheaper to stay and abide by a new source. Overall, the affirmation has also proved that $618 million will decrease. The overall spending of $618 million will decrease, and we will gain 5.7 billion. The negation side is often concerned about how our constituents will be impacted by this legislation, but we can use those 5 billion to bring in. We can use those 5 billion for welfare and to help those constituents. If we want moral and economic progress, it boils down to this legislation. To preserve our quality of life, join me and affirm.
Thank you, Senator Patel, for that speech of 3 minutes and 6 seconds. All questioners, please rise. Senator Gomez.
Thank you. Senator, do you believe that renewable energy companies can kickstart in the next 5 years?
Can you please restate that?
Do you believe that renewable energy companies can take off in the next 5 years after the implementation of this? You do believe that?
Yes, it's been seen in past. It's been seen.
Do you think that they can reach the 47% increase in jobs by then as well?
By then as well, it's estimated. While there's no given time frame, I trust Senator Lung's.
Can you give any evidence as to how companies can manage to increase jobs by 40% in the next 5 years after they just started?
Thank you, Senators. Senator Aperdon.
I don't know if it's just me, but I can't hear anything.
Senator, we can't hear you. You're unmuted, but we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I think it was switched. Anyways, considering I did give sources and that it's more viable for companies to buy credits instead of switching to clean energy, why should we pass this bill?
Why should we pass this bill? Because in the long term, it has shown to benefit Chinese.
How is it shown to benefit if companies can just buy credits instead of switching?
How likely are these companies to buy credits? Because from research,
Incredibly
it's
likely.
more likely to abide by this legislation and switch to a more renewable source.
Actually, it's incredibly likely because, like I said in my source, it's much easier and much cheaper for them to just buy credits instead of switching their entire energy source. Isn't it?
Thank you, Senators. Questioning time has elapsed. Seeing as that was a speech in the negation, we're now in line for a speech in the affirmation. All speakers, please rise.
Can I make a motion for?
State that.
So I was gonna a motion to suspend the rules to extend questioning period.
We're
I
gonna
know.
turn that down.
Okay.
Sorry, we're at the soft stop. We're not gonna do that. We have one speaker left, Senator Tian.
I believe that was a speech on the affirmation that Senator Patel just gave, right?
Yeah, I'm calling
Right,
for a speech
ongoing.
on the negation.
Okay.
Yeah, Senator Tian.
I thank the chair, and for the second and last time today, that is Senator Tian, T-I-A-N. My first name is like the Greek goddess without any indication of opposition. I will begin my speech momentarily on the negation of this bill. It's rare that two sides of a debate agree, yet today is inevitably one of those cases. And as the last speaker, it is my responsibility to unite the debate in favor of our terminating question. Which side does more to counter climate change? The answer is resoundingly in the negation's favor. Two main reasons why. This bill fails to provide any incentive to move towards long-term ecologically and sustainable solutions, and actually, in the process, hurts our constituents both economically and ecologically, which by previous negation senators have been turned down upon continually. First, Senator Lee proved that most of the world's greenhouse gas emissions are concentrated in a few large companies. But then this argument then turns in favor of the negation, when the affirmation realizes that these are the largest companies in the world, which coincidentally correlates with the most rich CEOs. And as a general demographic, CEOs in the United States earn 20 million per year, and their salaries are growing even faster than sustainable energy sectors, according to Liu in 2021 from NBC. So no, Senator Yoon, they won't have an incentive to switch to sustainable energy. They can and will continue paying for credits and speeding up this urgent timeline that both Senator Yoon and Senator Sheikh champion. Why does this reality work against the affirmation's dreamy ideals in which Senator Patel says that we don't have much time? Because this reality in turn translates to CEOs having the greatest ability to pay off and sue off whatever consequences do come from this bill. But then here comes the straw that breaks the camel's back. The fallacy in this bill, which none of my previous negation senators have even mentioned, which is that nowhere in this bill states a direct consequence for violating the cap that the EPA will set. While the affirmation's arguments have been surrounded around the environmental benefits of passing this bill, I agree. But I also think that it will be safe to say that even at their highest ground, those benefits cannot be felt if companies and rich CEOs are flaunting and finding loopholes in the rules left and right, the rules that this bill fails to provide. But here, for my second contention, is one more of the affirmation's glorified arguments flipped on its head. I and the affirmation both make no attempt to deny what Inspire Energy in 2020 states as a fact, which is that the cost of electricity from fossil fuel plants is 3 times higher than hydroelectric power, 50% higher than solar, biomass, and geothermal power. But what the affirmation can't address is that the cost of transferring energy systems, sometimes decade-old systems, is the true heart of the negation's economic concerns that has been perpetually misunderstood by both sides of the debate. This legislation, as it stands, provides zero incentive for the companies to stop pinching pennies on the type of energy in favor of saving themselves for the inconvenience and the initial primary cost of switching to sustainable energy. If the concerns of job loss can be addressed by the jobs created in green energy, as Senator Arpajon champions, where will these jobs come from if the green energy senator doesn't expand as a result of passing this bill? So therefore, every argument that the affirmation has thus far mentioned regarding sustainable energy has just fallen to the negation, and in the end, the negation wins this debate on the count that our constituents benefit most.
Sorry,
now
Senator,
and
I'm afraid I'm
tomorrow.
going to have to cut you off at 3 minutes and 10 seconds. All questioners, please rise. Senator Sheikh.
Hi, Senator. So this chamber has had like a massive misunderstanding. Like you can't just get unlimited credits. You only get credits with the amount of credits that have been allocated to other companies. So there's
That's
not like,
true.
unlimited amount.
However, with the amount of money that they have, it's easy for the EPA to become corrupt and for these rules to be bent. There is no set amount in
how are they
this bill.
corrupt? How does it get corrupt?
Because when you get money, you want to. There is no place in this bill that
You
outlines
still haven't
specifically the
explained how they
limits.
become corrupt.
There is no limit outlined in this bill. It says the EPA will set it. That therefore companies
The
can buy
policies that
more
are being
credits.
enacted, which it says in the
Thank
bill
you,
itself.
senators. Senator Arpajon.
Thank you for that speech, Senator. You talked about how the EPA can easily be corruptible by these companies. How would that happen?
It wouldn't be easily corruptible, but with the amount of money that these CEOs have and these companies have, because the companies that fall into this bill are inevitably the largest companies.
But would it be financial pressure for them to just like put up that amount of money just to
Right.
change
So even if they do theoretically have a cap on the credits, they can still pay off the fines and whatever damages do come from that, because therefore this cap isn't effective. They have enough
even
money
if
to do
there's
so and
fines,
not enough incentive to change.
All right. You talk about these fines that are just going to be
I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit there. Could you?
All right.
Thank you, senators. Questioning time has elapsed. Is there a motion on the floor? Senator Okereke.
Motion to move to previous question.
Was I muted? Is there a second? All right, cool. We will move to that motion unanimously, so we'll begin voting. All votes in favor of this bill, please rise. Senator Arpajon 1, Senator Yoon 2, Senator Lai 3, Senator Patel 4, Senator Shaikh 5, Senator Lung 6. All votes in the negation, please rise. Senator Okereke 1, Senator Gupta 2, Senator Gomez 3, Senator Tian 4, Senator Bala 5, Senator A. Pradhan 6. All votes in abstention, there should be none. Seeing none, as the presiding officer, I will break this tie in favor of the affirmation. Congratulations to the sponsor, Senator Lung. Seeing that we've exhausted our docket and all speakers, I will call to orders of the day. Thank you, everyone. This has been a fantastic round. We got through every possible speech, and we got through pretty much every question. I think we missed 2 or 3, and everyone got to give at least 3 questions, which is fantastic. So just before I finish it, I'm going to stop this recording.